Lord, thy protection, and in protection, strength, and in strength, reason, and in reason, knowledge, and in knowledge, truth, and in truth, justice, and in justice, love, and in love, the love of God, and the love of every living animation. Amen.
Oh.
Amen.
Good afternoon, folks. Welcome to Aurini's Outpost, our regular Sunday stream. I am joined by the Lady Haythroon. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing tonight, Aurini?
Oh boy, I'm actually in a lot of pain because it's the stupidest thing. I just pulled a muscle in my neck. I pulled it putting a shirt on. Okay,
sure you did.
That's how stupid this is. But the pain is actually making me quite giddy. Okay, it's tossing tons of endorphins in my system, so I'm actually kind of enjoying it. I would prefer it was like real pain from working out or fighting dogs or something braggable like that. But you know, endorphins are endorphins. So I think we're gonna have a fun stream for y'all this evening. We've also got Bombadil, not just in the comment section, but joining us on the stream. How are you doing, brother?
I'm doing great. Happy to be here.
As usual, very glad to have you. And you know, for some reason, as soon as we start the stream, your volume level goes down. So I'm just cranking that up a little bit.
Okay.
Tell us in the chat if there's any issues with that.
Thank you.
So the topics of tonight's stream. I want to talk about the strategy that we are engaging with right now. The lay of the land, the lay of the battlefield out there. You know, I want to talk about frame game because, guys, everybody that's a voice in the distant right needs to be listening to frame game. Okay, the guy's absolutely brilliant. He is providing these very detailed analyses. He's saying a lot of the stuff that I've said. He's saying stuff that you've said before, Haythroon. But he's organizing it in this. Like he understands how the sausage is made. And so he is explaining step by step by step how you do this stuff, how the wedge strategy works, how all of this is going on. And I guess the best place to start with this would be the Kavanaugh. So Kavanaugh is the Supreme Court Justice now. And there was much rejoicing.
Yay! Yay!
So the brief story behind this is, so one of the reasons we want to get Trump in is because there were seats opening up on the Supreme Court, and this is going to define the court for a generation. Do we have an activist liberal that is twisting the Constitution, or do we have a conservative that is enforcing the Constitution? And Kavanaugh is that conservative. He's a very decent Christian man. Lots of good stuff to say about this guy. Now, I'm also sure you could point out a couple of things he's voted for or what have you that aren't good, but overall, very decent guy, very good man. So the liberals, because they absolutely love democracy, responded by drudging up this woman that accused him and his buddies of gang raping her at a party that she can't remember when it happened or where it was, but she definitely remembers getting gang raped by Kavanaugh. And apparently they were roofing the punch. And absolute insanity. Absolute insanity. The woman was lying through her teeth. She was obviously lying through her teeth. Typical liberal tactics, right? And, Dashing Rogue has sent US $2. Thank you, brother. Says, let's give a little bit of cash for the Canuck. Very much so. But if you don't have a couple of bucks to toss me, make sure to, go to that like button and beat it like a retard would a drum.
Beat it all night long.
Yeah, exactly. Beat it like the reddest, steppest child in the world. So, Kavanaugh's elected. Good news, everybody. And even better news is that this, like the Me Too thing, the false rape allegations, like all of this stuff. This is stuff we've been talking about for years. The normies are getting red-pilled. All right? You go to a normie a year ago, and you talk about false rape accusations, and they say, oh, that never happened. A woman would never do that. Well, now half the country is looking at this and like, this woman wasn't raped. This woman's making it up. It's all lies. It's obvious BS. Her supposed witnesses are disagreeing with her and saying it didn't happen, etc., etc.
Yeah, these people won't even talk to you though. They're so set that he did something. If you talk to anyone on the street, they haven't actually studied what happened.
Well, a lot of them have started noticing. People are waking up bit by bit. And speaking of super chats, BRL Journey sends US $5. Peterson will stab you in the back for his principles. Quote. That was a quote from me. God, I hate it when you're right. If anything from Canada is anything from Canada turned either gay or traitorous. I won't. Yeah.
What a cuck tweet he sent out this week that Kavanaugh should step down.
Well, and this is where we start getting into strategy with all of these things. Yes, Peterson put out a tweet saying that because of these allegations, Kavanaugh should take the high road. It's funny how conservatives always need to take the high road. And he should step down. Even though these are groundless accusations, he will prove what a noble sacrificing hero he is for stepping down and allowing a Democrat to take... No! No, just because somebody's having a hysterical fit, you are not the bigger person for allowing the hysterical person to take a shit on your front lawn. Oh, they're just hysterical. I'm not going to prosecute them for shitting on my front lawn. I'll just clean it up as if that's it. No!
What's Peterson's logic in making that kind of argument? I mean, that just sounds odd coming from him. I mean, he's a psychologist and a philosopher, supposedly, right?
Oh, shoot, we just had a super chat, and it now says message redacted. So, thank you. I'm not going to mention your name because you just redacted your name from things. Not sure why you did that, but thank you very much for the super chat.
Maybe he wanted it to be anonymous.
Exactly. So,
yeah.
Much appreciated. His logic is Peterson is a liberal. Peterson is a universalist. The guy worked for the United Nations, talk about how you could psychologically manipulate people to, be more obedient, better cogs in the machine, etc. The global homo, which, by the way, that actually stands for homogenized, not the other one. He's pro-global homo. And guys, just sit at home, wash your balls, and don't join any movements that represent your interests. Yeah, it is hugely hypocritical of Peterson to say this. If Peterson actually believed this logic, then when Peterson got called out for hating transsexuals because he doesn't think you should be forced to use their preferred pronouns, he should have stepped down from his teaching position. Even though he wasn't being hateful, he should have proved how noble he was by stepping down. Even though Trump did nothing wrong when he said grab her by the pussy, he should have stepped down and given Hillary Clinton the election to prove how noble the right is. So yeah, it's absolute hypocrisy. And one of the things I've warned people is that, well, it's what Viral Journey commented, that Peterson is proud to betray you for his principles. And by the way, we can see your $2 pint there, Bombadil. You got the camera on. You might just be showing off.
My bad.
Yeah, I don't want.
There we go.
Don't want you
My
to
bad.
my coordinates.
All hail the pint.
You'll have 50 Antifas dispatched immediately from Global Homo headquarters.
That looked like a fine pint, too. Nice, deep amber color.
Mm-hmm.
I bet it's very citrusy, right? It's a pale ale you're enjoying there?
Yes.
Yeah, I love the citrus.
You know what? A little bit of orange or lime or lemon can really make a beer pop. Like, I don't care. I don't know. Somebody's like, real man drinks Budweisers. It's like, okay, alcohol. Yeah, I'm going to have my fine dark ale with just a little kick from the lime in it. Let's see. Red Bill Jesus sends US $5. It's moments like what happened with Kavanaugh is why 2018 will be remembered as the year of the woken. Yes, like there's all of this that is waking people up. And Viral Journey sends US $5. Peterson, you were found innocent of being a witch. Now commit seppuku because of Waman. It's absolutely ridiculous. In fact, like, isn't this interesting as well? How terrified this group of people, and what is this group of people? One, it's a group of people that are deeply angry at God. Two, it's a group of people that want blind allegiance to a foreign country. And three, it's a group of people who are R-types that are just politically, they are dedicated to undermining and betraying. It's a very insane group of people, and they've got the oddest loyalties. They've got the, they sell out their own people. They import a group of foreigners into the country that hates them so that that group will attack their own people, which allows them to be bigger victims. It's absolutely insane. It's absolutely evil. And the thing is, these people, they won. Okay? They won. They own everything. They own the media. They own the universities. They own the justice system. They own the, like, anytime you deal with a cop, okay, the cop is not following this is what, that guy, what was his name? The guy that set himself on fire instead of in front of the family court?
Oh, was this the guy, he had lost his children or something? I know the reference. I just can't place the name.
But for some reason, his name, it's like something circular, like ball or sphere.
I think it is ball, something ball.
Yeah, it might be. What this guy pointed out in his manifesto, if you read it, was that there's the laws on the books which come out of common law, they come out of natural law, they come out of the Constitution. They're nice and logical and predictable. And you don't actually need to read them to know what they are. You act like a decent human being, and you aren't going to break those laws. Then there's the best practices, which aren't technically laws. These are just the practices, the accepted standards of police behavior. And one example of this is in domestic violence, they have something called the primary aggressor law. Now, the primary aggressor is not the person that started the domestic violence. It's not the person that started the fight. It's the person most capable of performing violence. So a lovely 1984 doublespeak there, right? The primary aggressor is not the person that started things. It's the person that is best at violence, which means the man. And so the accepted practice for domestic violence is that you arrest the primary aggressor. You arrest the man, even if he's the victim of it. So yeah, you got your laws on the books, and then you've got the unofficial laws. Mm-hmm. And by the way, Super Chat from Dashing Rogue, US $5. I think you can join organizations. However, I don't think most organizations are worth joining nowadays. Most groups just want your vote and loyalty.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, that's one of the reasons why the Free Folk is not an organization.
Yeah, we need organizations that actually care about their members, that actually adhere to principles of honor. Like, you got to be smart and strategic as well. Okay, like, our enemies are very smart and strategic, but you also need honor. You also need to treat your people well. Most of the organizations out there want their people suffering, because somebody that's suffering is going to be more loyal than somebody who's successful.
Well, what I meant is there's much more power in the free estate system than there is in a like a top-down organization that's structured. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the one can be too easily co-opted.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, let's get back to what I was saying about how they've won.
Sure.
All right? Everybody's alienated.
Right.
Everyone's divorced. They won, and yet they're terrified of us.
Right.
Isn't that interesting?
It makes you wonder, what exactly is it that they're afraid of? What is it about us that they fear?
The last thing they want is us talking to one another, us comparing notes, and even more terrifying, us meeting up in person and actually being what we were meant to be. Okay, being alpha, being masculine, loving our culture, being loyal to one another. No. You should only love the video games and the outfits and all of that. Just immerse yourself in this disposable pop culture, and you yourself be a disposable person.
Mm-hmm.
They've won. They own everything, and yet they are going. Whew. One of the things Frame Game has been covering is a number of different strategy documents from these people. And I'm sure you've seen some of them. One of them was pointing out the major influencers on YouTube and drawing a spatial network of their relationships and their significance with each other. And another document was pointing out, and shoot, I wish, I need to figure out how to get visuals on here. But one of the images from the document was a log curve.
Are you able to share screen? Maybe if you're able to share your desktop screen, it'll come up.
I haven't the faintest clue how.
Okay.
It basically was a curve that was it's really high at the point to the left, and it just curves down to the right.
I'm sorry, one moment. Bombadil, could you mute your mic when you're not speaking? We're getting a lot of backroom noise from you. Thank you. Go ahead.
So on the far left, you have the extreme dissident thinkers. All right, this is the distant right. This is everybody you're thinking of. Now, guys like me, we're not reaching that huge of an audience. Okay, next to us, you have the semi-dissident thinkers. This would be your Sargon of Akkad. This would be your Jordan Peterson. This would be your semi-normies. Okay, this would be your skeptics, etc. And then you have the long tail of the normies. And then on the far right, you have their organizations, right? Like, even though these people control the media, their narrative is failing because it is completely false. It is completely based on lies. You know, us here on the extreme, the extreme right, obviously we have our own perspectives on things. We're probably not 100% right about everything. But our narrative is based upon truth. Theirs is based upon lies. And they are absolutely terrified of their house of cards coming down.
I actually don't consider myself extreme right.
Oh, I don't really consider myself extreme right either.
Oh, when you said we, I assumed you were speaking.
Well, that's how we get labeled.
Okay.
I'm actually fairly moderate in things. I'm a bit of a red Tory, right? Mm-hmm. Like I want mainly free market, mainly freedom, but with a patriarchal social system to help people, right? Because sometimes people fall between the cracks, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm an old red Tory. I'm not even that hardcore right. But as far left and right these days means whether or not you absolutely worship our number one ally. That's what the left is. You have to worship that number. It's a really confusing morass.
Well, the interesting thing is, of course, quoting Aristotle, virtue lay in the mean, which means virtue lay in the farthest extreme from the extremes.
Which is pretty much what we are.
Exactly.
Right? Not to go all horseshoe theory, because this ain't horseshoe theory, but they own the left and they own the right.
Exactly.
Us on the distant right, we're not even really right wing when you get right down to it. Okay, we're just dissidents from both of those. And $20 from VRL Journey. You could just make a gun club or something else lefties hate. Right orgs always try to appeal to the lowest common denominator, and if they didn't do that, they would have to worry about infiltration. Just look at the NRA.
Yes.
You know what? Yeah?
That's true.
Something like a gun club is about pursuing excellence. Right? Guns are not a right or left thing. They're just a tool. They are just guns. Mao said, political power comes from the barrel of a gun. All right? They're not left or right in and of themselves. But because owning a gun involves responsibility and practice and et cetera, like all these true things, the left hates it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what they're trying to do is drive a wedge between us crazy extremists that see reality for what it is and the moderate extremists. Because if they can destroy the Alex Jones, the Sargons of Akkad, the Jordan Petersons. The thing is, guys, like, we are a little bit too truthful, all right? We're a little bit too, people want their comfortable delusions.
Right. Well, you know what this is, Aurini. This is the 80-20 rule being applied from both sides, right? So the 20% on one extreme, or either extreme for that matter, and the 20% that may be represented by us, and I'm speaking of this in the abstract, are both fighting for the 80% that can be swayed to any direction.
Precisely. And so we are left with the difficult question, what do we do with the moderate, not the 80%, but what do we do with the Jordan Petersons and Sargon of Akkads? On the one hand, these people love attacking us on the right. And actually, super chat from Red Pill Jesus. It's obvious our enemies fear strong men because those men are difficult to control and manipulate, which is why they want to criminalize any expression of masculinity or anyone who promotes it.
Straight up. Yeah.
But you know what? People crave. They crave strong men. One thing I run into in my personal life is a lot of people, they don't believe that I am what I look like. They are convinced that no, that only exists in the movies. That only exists in old stories. Nobody's actually like that. But bit by bit, they find out that, yeah, I'm a rough and tumble guy, but I love my dog. Right? They find the stuff out, and they want it to be true. They're doubtful. They don't want to be. A lot of the guys pretending to be alpha, for lack of a better word. Most of these guys are just pretending, right? And if they're pretending, they're comfortable with. They're comfortable with the pretend lie because they can understand it, they can control it, they can fit it into a box. They don't have to change anything. Whereas when they actually see somebody that does, and Lord knows I'm not saying I'm perfect, okay? That's not what I'm saying at all. But I do embody quite a bit of virtue.
Well, you live honestly, from what I know of you, you're not putting a false face on. You are walking the talk. I try to
as much. Sometimes I falter.
Well, we all do, but you live honestly.
And that blows them away. Because even in this narcissistic culture, people still crave honesty and truth. Now, the issue is, to get to this 80%, who's going to appeal to them? People like me, or Hey Thrun, or Roosh, or JF, or these. No. We're a little bit too crazy. We're talking about Pizzagate, and we're talking, we're saying maybe all that casual sex isn't such a great idea,
Hey, it was suggested on Esme's show that I recently did that maybe I'm a misogynist.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We need those people. We need Peterson to tell people to wash their balls, and we need Sargon of Akkad to rile up the feminists. Because, guys, every single moment the feminists are spending attacking Sargon of Akkad is a moment that they're not attacking us. Right? They are. Yeah, I was talking with Bulwarker the other day, and he summed it up thusly: what is more dangerous, a brigade of infantry soldiers or one spec ops team?
Mm-hmm.
And we are the spec ops team. We are the intel organization, and we want our enemies spending all this time fighting the brigade. Right? Like, all the guys out there that are reading, again, Peterson's books actually have a lot of very good material in them. I quote Peterson regularly because he's not stupid. He is right about a lot of things.
Yeah.
But you know what? Those guys, you can liken them to the cannon fodder. You get the enemy fighting the cannon fodder while your adventuring party flanks them and then goes for the general. We don't want them to notice we exist. I mean, they do sort of notice, but it's going to be somebody popular with Sargon that gets most of the attention. So how do we deal with these people? On the one hand, if you mistake them, this is what I did. Okay, this is what I did during Gamergate, is I mistook these people for allies. You know, I thought, like, listen, we have the SJWs over there taking over gaming. We've got Anita Sarkeesian. We've got this enemy. Surely I can make alliances with Thunderfoot and Sargon and who else? Shoe on Head and like all of those moderate people. Surely we have a common enemy. I can trust them not to shoot me in the back. Well, I was quite wrong about that. And so this is why I'd like to introduce the conception, the difference between coalitions and alliances.
Yes.
What our enemies are doing. Actually, I'm going to tell you a little story. This is from Frame Game. He was talking about this. Now, this is just a fascinating story. So there was the head coroner in London, who a woman that she looks like she has a lot of integrity, looks like a very decent woman. Now, in Muslim and Jewish religious practices, it's extremely important that the body be buried in the first 24 hours. And so this Jewish woman died and her body came in, but ahead of her in the queue was a Muslim, like a 20-year-old Muslim man had died. And so when the Jewish family demanded that their mother be buried immediately, she said, no, there's a queue and these Muslims were here first. And it's equally important to them. So we are going to go by the queue. You die first, you get buried first. It's that simple. Well, a number of Jewish organizations attacked her for this. All right, they acquired the consent of the mayor. The mayor of London's a Muslim, by the way. And they got a whole bunch of moderate Muslim organizations to sign up with them. And even though no Muslims were present in the court, like what this woman was doing was sensitive to Muslims, but they got the Muslims they got a coalition to attack her and accuse her of hating Jews and Muslims. And I think they sued her for like $650,000. And finally she cracked and apologized and knuckled under. They absolutely destroyed this woman. Mm. Now, the real reason that they were forming this coalition was it had absolutely nothing to do with burial practices. It was about forming the social pressure to destroy a Muslim organization that's opposed to Israel because they don't like how Israel is treating the Palestinians. So they formed a coalition with the very organizations they were trying to destroy. With these Muslim organizations, they formed that coalition to destroy the Muslims. And this woman was just, a casualty that got brought up. She got brought down. They didn't care about her. She was just, you got to break a few eggs to make an omelet. Incredibly evil and depressing. Hmm. And, and just for the record, for the public record, I actually support Israel, not the Palestinians. I mean, I kind of think they're all assholes, but if I had to pick a side, I would pick the Israelis over the Palestinians. The Palestinians don't seem to want peace. Just for the record, so nobody can say that I am anti-Semitic. I love our number one ally. Now, what this whole event is extremely evil. It's extremely manipulative. One might be tempted to point out that these organizations, they really trivialize the Holocaust, using it to gain political power over the British government to support the nation of Israel. They're trivializing the deaths of millions of Jews. It's quite a nasty thing to be doing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
And in fact, the more anti-Semitism that there is in Britain, and most of the anti-Semitism in Europe comes not from Christians, it comes from Muslims that are migrating there, but the more anti-Semitism there is, the more they can complain about anti-Semitism, the more power they can grab. We can't do that. Okay, the one thing, I'm listening to Frame Game, and the one thing Yeah, sometimes I think he feels like, because he's trying to explain to the Goy, he's trying to explain, like, listen, you stupid white people, stop fighting with each other. This is how you organize. I think he feels like an ad or like a music exec that has two rappers underneath them from opposite coasts trying to say, guys, stop trying to murder each other. You both have millions of dollars. What he doesn't understand is that there's this sense of honor that's extremely important to Europeans. And so when somebody like Jordan Peterson does what they did, when they go against Kavanaugh, we are outraged by it. And we want to denounce him. We want to attack him. He's like, why I trusted you. Why did you? And Lord knows I did the same thing, didn't I? You know, like I still have a little bit of a chip on my shoulder with Sargon because what he did was extremely dishonorable. Guys, we need to get past that to a certain extent. Now, on the one hand, yes, we need to be honorable. We do not throw our people under the bus to gain political power.
That's right.
That said, who are our people? One thing that Common Filth pointed out all the time is you cannot be loyal to that which is not loyal to you. And he typically meant this in the upward direction. That, you know what, there's very toxic elements in the Catholic Church right now. We as Catholics cannot be loyal to those elements because they're not loyal to us. Like they hate Catholicism. They hate Christians. You know, you can't be loyal to a pope that calls good evil and evil good. You can be loyal to your priest. You can be loyal to your parish. You can be loyal to your fellow Catholics, but you can't be loyal to that organization that hates you. If your country hates you, you can't be loyal to that. It also goes in the other direction. You can't be loyal to a base of supporters that would eat you alive. So take Gamergate as an example. Most of the people that were involved in Gamergate still had the blinders on. They still had those blue pill lenses on. And they were loyal, even though they were opposed to Anita Sarkeesian, they were loyal to feminism. And they were very prone to attacking anybody that had actually seen what was going on. You can't be loyal to those people. And if those people are going to walk into the machine gun fire, well, they're not your people. They haven't sworn an oath of loyalty. There's no way to hold them to any standard whatsoever.
That's right.
All you can do with those people is let them be the cannon fodder. So yeah, Jordan Peterson is not going to be our friend. It doesn't mean that we need to attack him, however. And I think this is one of the big mistakes that we make in the dissident right, whatever you want to call this. First, we get really angry with the moderates for being moderates. Okay? That's like getting angry with a dog for being a dog. I want to gently warn people about this. Yeah, like I want to point out, like, listen, Peterson says a lot of great stuff, but when the chips are down, he's not our ally. He cannot be trusted, and he is wrong about a few things. That said, let's not create a mob to attack Peterson. You know, even what I said about Sargon last week was probably a little bit too harsh. Sargon is going to Sargon. He's Sargon of Akkad. I think we all know what he is. But yeah, if he wants to attack feminists and, you know, This Week in Stupid, that's great.
Well, there's no value in attacking somebody else. I mean, that's the thing. You're better off being pro X versus anti Y.
You know what? We need to turn the other cheek to these people. If you know that somebody is going to try and win points with the feminists for attacking you, and yet at the same time they fight with the feminists, turn the other cheek. That is not a fight worth having. And I know you'll agree with that. Hey, through this, some fights are not worth engaging in.
Oh yeah, you have to evaluate. What do you stand to gain by expending resources there? Because everything is about expenditure of resources for potential gain. If there's no gain to be made, don't expend the resources.
Exactly. Peterson attacks the right because he gets brownie points for doing that. Right? They pat him on the head and call him a good boy, and he gets to it legitimizes him. He's allowed to criticize Kathy Newman because he also criticizes the alt-right. When we attack Peterson, best case scenario, we get 1% of his fan base moves to us. But at the same time as that we get that 1%, another larger percent of his base is offended by us. Like these people hate Jordan Peterson. They're probably just a bunch of Nazis. There's nothing to be gained in attacking Peterson. And furthermore, there's nothing to be gained in attacking one another on the right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, guys, I'm going to make a slight request of you. Anybody out there that has an in with My Posting Career or with TRS or with whomever, you know, link them to this timestamp, because I've got a message for everybody else on the right. Guys, the left can't meme. The left can't meme. All right? They cannot come up with ways to attack us that are any good. Anytime they try, they create something like fake news, which we flip around and we own, and we call them fake news. Every single time I see a figure on the right, whether it be Millennial Woes, Roosh V, you name it, anytime I see them getting taken down by the left, it's with a meme that started in our circles. We gave them the weapons to shoot one another. There is no profit in attacking one another. It doesn't increase our fan bases by any significant portion. It doesn't undermine the other people by any significant portion. All it does is provide intel and weapons to the enemy. We need to form a coalition. We don't have to agree on absolutely everything, but we have to agree on who the enemies are. And the difference between ally and coalition is whether or not they can play nice. If they can not make cheap shots, make memes, make personal attacks on other figures on the right, right? If they can play nice with others, then they're a potential ally. If they can't, if they're a Jordan Peterson or a Sargon of Akkad that is constantly trying to win points with the left by attacking the right, well, they're not going to be our ally, but they can be part of our coalition. Again, we are beyond scrappy underdog. Okay, we are already defeated, and yet we terrify them. They are terrified of us. And good Lord, do they ever want us infighting with each other? We got to stop doing that. We got to be adults about this. Okay, we got to be a little bit more strategic, a little bit more evil. You know, go read your Machiavelli.
Well, I was going to say, whatever it is that they fear in us, that is what we have to use to bind ourselves together.
Yeah. What they fear is masculinity and truth and people that don't give a F. So stop, please, guys. Stop attacking allies. Start thinking. All right? And also, don't go for the big public events. Listen, Peterson can do the big public events for us because he gets away with it. We do a big public event, they throw a few Nazis in prison. No. Sargon of Akkad and you know, those guys do the big public events. They draw the enemy fire. We start organizing and red pilling people. All right? We are not the army. We are the intelligence organization. We are the spec ops team. So, you know, and if anyone of you happen to tune in to hear that, you can ignore the rest of it. That was my message for other guys in the dissident right.
It's true, though. Whatever they fear, that's what we need to exalt in ourselves and those in our camp.
Because good Lord, we have these people running scared.
Mm-hmm.
They are publishing document after document about how to destroy us. And it's like, we're like 30 people on the internet. Oh, Watchman 12 sends US $2. Thank you, brother. Yeah, no, like how many of us are there really? Like,
go ahead.
Maybe 10,000?
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think it's that many.
Maybe a bit more than that. Maybe 50,000. I'm just trying to think about subscription figures.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe 50,000. I think we have more than 10,000, but we don't have 100,000 people.
Yet.
And they're terrified of us. That tells you something. That tells you something really important, guys. They shouldn't be afraid of us. They've already won. And yet, and this goes back to turning the other cheek. If they were smart, they'd ignore us. But no, they attack. Viral Journey sends US $10 and says, there's no real reward for men to debate feminism. The less rent-free they have in your head, the better. Gym, game, greenbacks. Now isn't the time to draw swords. Yeah, exactly. Listen, the time you draw the sword is when you've already won.
That's right.
Right now, we're peace-loving.
I mean, feminists really, in my opinion, should be ignored. They want attention. Don't give it to them. And don't give it to the males who follow them.
Oh, and Pepe sells, but who's buying? Since US $2 and points out, Feast of Our Lady of Victory is today. Deus Volt. Deus Volt, indeed, brother. What an opportune time. Ave Maria, says Red Pill Religion. Indeed.
Hail Freya as well.
Aye. So I guess that's the big topic I want to talk about, was that strategy. Is like you got to pick your fight smart. And well, here's the other thing I'm looking at. I don't want to say too much about this. Like you guys can probably figure some of this out on your own. But what sort of things am I looking at? I'm looking at well, number one, like what the free folk is largely all about is giving some hope to people, for crying out loud.
Mm-hmm.
There's this, I'm not even going to go into Jim Medicare. He's been covering this crazy alt-right neo-Nazi that went black-pilled and became a transsexual and now worships the superior black race. Yeah, this is what happens if you don't give people hope, if you don't give them a direction, if you don't give them something to be doing. And that's a large part of what the free folk is. It's we need ritual in our lives. We need. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, and people need to invest themselves in something that they believe can get them to a better place. I mean, just sitting around looking at the world around them, seeing all this darkness and despair and getting depressed over it, that's not going to help you. But being part of something that is moving towards a goal that's striving upward, that gives you a reason to get up every day. That gives you a reason to invest your best self in something.
You take your average guy of European descent, 20s, 30s, that's basically red-pilled on things. Let me ask you, why would you bother trying to accomplish anything in your life? Like if you're red-pilled about the job market, you realize how toxic it is. Mm-hmm. If you're red-pilled about women and divorce and all that, you realize that the odds there are really bad. You start to... Mm-hmm.
That was the same thing for us ladies, we're dealing with it from our end too.
Oh yeah, guys, the men and women of every generation deserve one another. You can't be It's the same, but different on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
And the ladies, like, given the complete dearth of men out there, why would they bother being chaste? So you got these guys that are red pilled, but like, why would I bother building a career? Why would I bother doing all of this when I can live minimally? I can live minimalistically and still get tail. And that's perfectly rational if we're not doing anything, if we're not building anything, if there is no cause to hope.
Mm-hmm.
So that the reason the free folk exists is to take people and give them something worth hoping for, worth belonging to, worth striving for.
And giving them a stake in it, giving them a stake in what they yield from that labor.
You know what our enemies do? Is they take their group of people and instill paranoia in them. They instill fear that if we don't seize control of these things, if you don't support us seizing control of things, then there's going to be another something really bad. That's not what, no, we're doing the opposite. We're building up our people. We're giving them something to strive for, and we're supporting them in the process. By the way, US $10 from Red Pill Jesus. I think leftists say masculinity is a social construct due to them being too lazy and incompetent to become strong themselves. So they come up with bullshit theories like this to feel better.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Look at all of these.
They want something they can deconstruct. They don't want to acknowledge that. They don't want to acknowledge natural law. They don't want to acknowledge what exists in the physical universe. So they like to say, "Oh, well, it's a construct," so that they can try to deconstruct it. Yeah, good luck with that.
I see this everywhere. I see this with the, well, an ongoing issue with the Rouge V formist Indian race trolls. And Indian race trolls show up and just pause, like they start throwing out all this complete Jared Diamond nonsense about how civilization develops because they don't want to do better. Because they don't want to take a hose to the streets in India and try and talk these people into using indoor plumbing. They want to blame somebody else. They don't want to strive themselves. They want to blame somebody else.
Well, you know, when you sow the wind, you reap the whirlwind. You can't sin against nature and not reap a consequence for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, nature is not merciful. God might be merciful. Nature is not.
I really like that quote, Aurini, that generation deserves the men and women of each other. That set my mind free a lot.
Yeah, guys, when you look at the low-quality women, I mean, turn around and look at the men from the women's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
You want better women? Well, that's up to us as men to make them better women, to help guide them, help heal them. You want better women, we need to be better men.
Well, yeah, the men and women are not incentivizing each other to be their best selves. That's the problem. And another component in the problem is because this society has created so much abundance. I'm not necessarily going to call it wealth because I don't think a lot of this constitutes wealth. I think it's a lot of empty boxes and empty calories. But there's so much abundance that men and women really don't need each other in the ways that they did in elder times. So there's no incentive to self-improve and be, you know, be your best self and be worthy of the best than somebody else. That's going to be some difficult terrain to navigate for anybody who wants to self-improve because you're going against the current.
Yeah, one of the aspects that brought me to faith was that, well, it's the prisoner's dilemma, right? The prisoner's dilemma where you can cooperate or defect, but if you just run the math, it makes sense to defect. Right? Like, as a guy, instead of being a real man, instead of being a pillar of the community, it makes perfect sense to be a bum, to work a part-time job, and, you know, just sleep around with the alpha girls out there that are proving their independence, and you know, to paraphrase Aaron Clary, take the Smith & Wesson retirement plan. And DJ Touchdown says US $9.99 and says, "Hail Thunar."
Thank you for that.
Who is Thunar, hey Thrun?
Thunor is the Germanic name for Thor, our god Thor.
Excellent. We got our own Thor here. It's Bombadil. He wields the banhammer with great justice.
That's right. Speaking of Germanic, I was wondering. I was talking to my buddy in Identity Europa. Why haven't we seen more people? Instead of going with white, why not people saying, "Oh, we're gonna have a Celtic meetup, or we're gonna have a Germanic meetup, or a Nordic meetup"? That's something that's still.
This is something that Frame Game points out. It's like, guys, you got Italian American clubs, you got Polish communities, right? Why aren't you organizing with these people? Okay, this is really crucial. Here's a little story about how I think it was the SPLC, one of the ADL, doesn't matter which one, how they took over the FBI. Is that back in the day, what they started doing was tracking all the hate organizations and just inundating the FBI with all it's like, we've been tracking this group and that group and da, 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 da. And the FBI at the time was saying, guys, could you please stop emailing us all this stuff? Or mail, I guess it was mailing, it was back in the day. Until they ran into a budget crisis. And so the FBI has a budget crisis, and you got the ADL sending them all this information about hate groups. What department gets cut? You got to be useful to people. One thing Identity Europa is doing quite well is that they are cleaning up streets. They're taking their members, instead of marching on Parliament, they're just picking up garbage in the community.
Yeah, start investing in your own local communities.
And when you do that, send a gift basket to the Parks and Recreations Department of your city and say, just FYI, we picked up all the garbage here, so that, just try and help out, make our community better.
Identity Europa had their first kid born this past week. That was through a couple formed through the organization. I thought that was pretty cool.
Oh, that's wonderful. God bless.
Yeah, that is. We got a couple of super chats that have come in the last minute or two here.
Yeah, Wojman sent $1, and he comments afterwards, "Hey, Thrun, men need to stop wanting women. Make women want you, and don't be a sleazebag. Don't sleep around. Be a Chad, okay? Save our civilization." Yeah, exactly. Like, be a man.
I told him I agree.
I was saying, okay, I'm in an environment that has a lot of very, very pretty girls in it. Okay, but it's like, I look at these girls, like, they're too cute. They're too young. I can't do anything with that. I could, but it'd be a waste of my time and a waste of their time. And it's, there's this balancing act. Like, yes, as a man, it's your job to pursue, but don't pursue indiscriminately. Okay, like, eat everything that you kill.
Oh, admit it. They just can't compete with what was it? My dulcet tones.
Oh, well, there's that as well. That's certainly. But like, what a guy that went out into the woods with his rifle and just shot like 12 deer and then left them there to rot. That guy's an asshole. That guy's screwing up the environment for everybody else. So don't be. Yeah, you can be that guy. The girls are like lining up just to sleep with whomever. And I'm not saying be a proud Vigtow. That's not what I'm saying either. I'm saying that, if you look for a woman that you actually like, all right, not a perfect woman, but a woman that has a lot of good qualities, pursue that woman, try and make something honest out of her. If it doesn't work, that's okay. But, be honest, be responsible. Be an environmentalist. VRL Journey sends you as $5, says, women ultimately get what they want, for better or worse. And many women do want soy boys, even if it makes them miserable. Or they become a cat lady.
I'm going to disagree with many women do want soy boys. I don't think women want that. They may believe that they want that. They may have convinced themselves that they want that, but their nature is going to rebel against that ultimately, because you just can't be a healthy woman and be attracted to that.
Well, there's some people out there that are just completely lost. That we're not going to save everybody.
Yeah.
And that woman that decides to make herself obese and cut her hair short and dye it freaky colors and only date soy boys, you're not going to save that woman. It's very sad. She's choosing a miserable life, but, you know, yeah, she's going to get what she chooses. There's a lot more women, however, that they don't know how to say what they want.
Mm-hmm.
If you've seen nothing but Marvel movies, you can't say what it means to be a hero. You can't become a hero by emulating any of those Marvel characters. They are too flat. They're dishonest. There's a lie at the core of every single one of them. If you want to be a hero, you're going to need to expand beyond Marvel movies. But if you started off with Marvel movies, well, you can grow beyond that, right? Like I guess for me, it was more Star Wars as the hero story that I grew up with.
Mm-hmm.
And Star Wars is not enough. Like Luke Skywalker is a very good hero, and so is yes, Hathroon. So is Han Solo.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not quite enough. You need to go beyond that.
Yeah.
Search, and that's where a lot of these girls are. They don't know how to put into words what a real man looks like.
Well, they've been so confused and misinformed by several generations of feminism and leftist culture.
Doesn't mean they can't be. If a real man shows up, they could be led.
Sure.
Ian McDonald sends US $2 and says, "Hail Hagia Sophia." Beautiful building that.
Mm-hmm.
So I still think there's a lot of lurkers that we don't have to abandon the online sphere, but they could be connected with real life specific groups, because that's still acceptable. A specific group, even German, if you're a German American identity group, like, no, you can't be LARPing with Nazi flags. But if you're truly German, which my background is Austrian, then yeah, you can meet up. That's still well within the Overton window. But you have people who want to ride Leviathan and want a pan-European empire. You know, they're a little diluted by grandeur.
Yes, it's guys, the smaller things. We're not, the Free Folk is not an organization. It's a
I define it as an effort. It's an upward striving and an expanding outward. It's an organic movement, just like the way like the way energy moves in nature. If you look at how something moves in nature, it strives upward and expands outward.
It's an opportunity for you to form a local organization.
Yes.
This is what oh goodness, what is this guy's name? The community organizer.
Oh, Zelensky.
This is what
Saul Alinsky, yeah.
Alinsky.
Saul Alinsky.
This is what he did. He didn't have a organization. He got together with tons of organizations and helped promote organizations. And now there was this, and Frame Game played this. This really jumped out at me, where he was talking to some Native American organization, and he's saying, like, listen, guys, do you want to be good Christians or do you want power over the white man? And and then he goes on to reference the Christian martyrs dying in the Colosseum, and he said, "Father, forgive them." Which really shouldn't come as any surprise, since we know who he dedicated his book to.
Mm-hmm.
But good Lord, like, just that chutzpah to say, "Satan, forgive those martyrs for sacrificing themselves for God." What absolute chutzpah from that guy. So yeah, the guy is complete evil. All right, the guy has Satan's cock buried all the way down his throat. Doesn't mean he's not a good strategist that we can learn from. And Vero for Journey sends US $5 and says, Star Wars should have ended like the Odyssey, with Luke slaughtering all his woman suitors after returning home. Unfortunately, Luke is Vigtau. You know, like the whole idea that Jedis have to be celibate just seems so stupid to me. There was never anything like that. It's, I didn't like that addition to the canon. And Red Pill Jesus says, where do you think Marvel heroes fall short? The fact that they act like 13-year-old boys. Yeah, I was watching that Avengers Magic Fist for the Purple Guy movie, whatever that's called. I watched the first half of it, and they're all being snarky little brats to one another, and they're all very submissive to their women. They don't earn being heroes. They're invincible. See, a real hero, real men. Yeah, the feminists love to talk about male fragility. And it's so nasty for them to say that. Because the thing is, as a guy, guys, we are so fragile. We are so incredibly fragile. It's like, yeah, we're strong and we can take a punch and whatnot, and a knife in the eye blinds you. You know, the Achilles heel in all of us. None of us can punch away bullets. We are actually extremely weak. Warfare is all about strategy. Warfare is all about hitting the enemy where they're weak. We are very fragile. We know that better than anybody else. Men that have actually been in combat know that better than anybody else. We're not just fragile physically, we are fragile psychologically. And yet we do it anyway. Marvel heroes aren't. Marvel heroes are invincible. Marvel heroes crack jokes and snark at one another and then get slammed into a building and everything's fine. That's faux
Yeah.
Sorry,
I was looking at the trailer for the new Aquaman, which, you know, at least it's referring back to the old gods, you know, some white culture. But you know, he's just jumping out, like the girl just jumps out of the airplane with no parachute. He jumps out with no parachute, gives a whoopee holler. And I grew up on these comics. Like, this was the escapism that got me through the awful parts of my childhood. But all the snark and like this fake stuff it's really getting old at this point.
compare that to Frodo.
Mm-hmm.
And the ring devastates him it breaks him. But he still succeeds even when he's broken. Aragorn. When the hobbits first run into Aragorn, they think, oh, thank God, we've found an alpha male to protect us. And it turns out that the sword in his scabbard is broken. Aragorn cannot fight the ring wraiths. He cannot defeat them. He knows, like, the total alpha male, but he is so foundationally weak against the ring wraiths as they're running to Rivendell, isn't he?
Yes.
That's a hero. Okay, you know, you've probably heard the saying, courage is not being unafraid, it's overcoming fear. Being a hero is not being invulnerable, it's overcoming your vulnerabilities.
Yes, moving through them. They're there, they're real, but you move through them or you move past them. It's something you work through.
I think a lot of
that woman in sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say that woman in Lord of the Rings in the third one that kills the Nazgul, and she has that moment where she's like, right. That's a feminine character, and she doesn't get, because she still doesn't get her love interest, right? She has her moment of glory, and it's epic. I love it, but she's not, you know, this, you know, Captain Marvel, like that woman who played Captain Marvel, this MGTOW channel, Turd Flinging Monkey, which I don't follow. I mean, this guy's.
Listen, I just don't like his name. Okay, that's
well, and he's in a sex bot.
I don't like his name.
He wants, like, the MGTOWs that want to purchase a sex bot. Like, no, but anyways, he did the face app and made her smile, which she does look better smiling. It doesn't take away from her, in my opinion. Anyway, she flipped out. All these actors, like Chris Evans flips out. You know, he has these soy face smiles on his Instagram. The way they flip out, like Prissy, SJW, blue hairs, except they're the ones being propped up as the leaders. They freak out the same way. It really, for me, as someone who loves these movies and wants them to be everything that they're portrayed to be, it's really disappointing.
Yeah, read the old myths. They're better.
Yep.
Seriously, you're better off reading Tolkien or classical mythology, Norse mythology. Have you read The Lord of the Rings, the whole book?
Oh yeah, I've read
I mean, I assume
all
so, given your avatar.
yeah, I've read all four.
Yeah.
The Hobbit, the three. I've dabbled in the Silmarillion. I love it.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, Eowyn's story, particularly in Return of the King, in the book, is just amazing, and her speech when she's at the Pelennor Fields is just so much more epic in the book than what little time they give to it in the film.
Oh god, that's your strong female protagonist, okay? Not this stupid elf that you shove into. Oh,
I hope we're talking about Arwen and not Galadriel.
oh no, Galadriel's awesome. No, I mean they shove a female elf into the movie to save them at the last minute when they're going to Rivendell.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
like Galadriel, she has a moment where the ring tempts her, and she looks epic in that moment. I'm going by the movies. I'm sorry, but
That's
even in
okay. Yeah.
even in the movie, she has the moment where she gets tempted by the ring. Like that's like I could think of Scarlett Johansson in Avengers. Like she has something like there's red on my ledger. It's like this is the equivalent of like my lipstick smeared. You know, it's nowhere near the character. It's like I keep saying like, but these women, these Marvel movies have no flaws.
Right. They're
It's
fantasies. Yeah,
right. Yeah.
they're nothing that a mortal human being with, flaws and merits can relate to. That it's completely unrelatable.
they're a narcissistic shell.
Yeah, and I mean, in the Lord of the Rings, even though you have these larger than life races and larger than life characters, I mean, Galadriel is essentially a goddess on Earth. She still suffers, some of the, as you said, like the temptations and weaknesses of mortality, because she's an elf in exile. If you read the Silmarillion, as you said, you started to, she's exiled as a result of the rebellion of the Noldor and so forth. So she suffers those weaknesses of an elf that's stuck in Middle Earth.
Well, that bit where she turns down the ring, it's it's like a woman admitting that she's not always going to have her youthful beauty.
Mm-hmm.
And she could pretend to have it. She could manipulate men and control men. Like she could be Madonna, for example, right? But she
Right.
knows that's evil and not self-serving. And well, like she's like, and I will fade without the ring. Like
Right.
magic is the. I could hold on to it. I could hold on to it, but it would not be good. It would not be righteous. I will accept my inevitable mortality.
Yes.
Let's see, Elder Fan sends you us $5 and asks my impressions of Thanos. He's alpha. You know what? I'm not really an expert on these movies, but that I actually would think that's a valid argument that Thanos. Now, first, he has a stupid plan. I guess his plan is to kill 50% of people to create gender equality. I don't fucking know. It's
But
but
he could just multiply stuff with his gauntlet.
it really doesn't make sense. And if I've actually looked into some of the lore about this, is my reason for arguing that it's a what's that heresy? Anyway,
Gnosticism.
yeah, the reason I argue that it's Gnostic, the whole Marvel universe is Gnostic, is because it's defined by the Thanos. No, not Thanos. Maybe it was the Galacticus or something. He was actually lived in a previous universe that got destroyed, but he survived it, and he's in the present one. And it's like man's version of reality is what determines reality. Like your subjective perception of reality determines truth in the Marvel universe. This is why all the aliens are humanoid looking, and this is also why you become powerful not through following natural law, but through self-aggrandizement, which is what all the Marvel heroes and all the Marvel villains do. They self-aggrandize. Iron Man isn't powerful because of his tritanium armor. He's powerful because he's cool, and that's Gnosticism at the core. But sorry, back to Thanos. It's Thanos has a plan, and he exerts his will, and that's alpha. None of the other characters have plans. None of them have None of them, they respond to it. They're very effeminate. They're very feminine in that they respond to what's happening. Whereas Thanos actually, or Thanos, however you pronounce that, he actually has a plan. It's a stupid plan, but he has a plan, and he goes out and orchestrates it, and he inspires men and women to follow him. So yeah, I think it's quite arguable. And this is the sad thing: is girls, when they see an actual alpha man that does these things, they immediately interpret that as Thanos, the bully, and the villain. You know, like they want the soy boy, like Tony Stark, who begs his aging wife to please let him impregnate one of her last remaining ovaries. And Viral Jernison's, any thoughts on Thanos, either of you?
I'm not familiar with the character. I don't watch Marvel movies, so I'm sorry.
I watched them myself.
I wanted to comment on I saw a super chat about anime.
I was going to get to that. Viral Journey sends US $10 and says, "This is a problem in anime too. They don't understand that a heroic character can't be invincible or the most powerful X in the universe. There's no risk or stakes."
So One Punch Man is a parody of that, and the boss at the end of One Punch Man is actually, I don't know if Viral Jerry knows this, but it's a parody of Goku from Dragon Ball Z.
That makes sense now.
Yeah.
I never watched Dragon Ball Z, but I watched the episode where Goku becomes a proctologist, but I don't think that's official canon.
The earlier Dragon Ball had more character development, and even because the Dragon Ball Z was only meant to go to the Frieza saga, which the Frieza is this transvestite character that his voice sounds like the Jewish voice that like the TRS guys will use, like that New York Jewish voice. That's,
you're gonna be offending people,
Right. That's what the Japanese, who were very particular about.
Actually, let me just state for the record again. I actually think it's a very endearing and funny voice. I very much like Jewish comedians. I'm terrible. I really like black people. They're so down to earth and genuine. I really like Jews. They're so they get all worked up. I like the people. I'm terrible. I know.
We're gonna start calling you Manischewitz.
Women don't fake orgasms.
Oh.
I met that guy that Pastor Tom interviewed, that guy Michael Brown, that I don't know if you remember this guy. He's a Jew for Jesus, and I love him. His content is great if you're an evangelical Christian, but he still has that like New York Jewish. Okay, I'm getting off into too many tangents. Maybe
okay. Let me try to get back to anime for a second. Hey, Drew, could you tell that story about the samurai that couldn't kill the man?
Isn't that your story, or is that my story?
Your story.
Oh, it was my story? Oh, I know a summarized version of it where there was a man who insulted the samurai's lord, right? And so the samurai, of course, is honor bound to go seek this man out and kill him to avenge the insult. So he undertakes this great quest to find this man, and eventually they meet up. And the man spits in the samurai's face, right? The samurai draws his sword, and the man spits in his face, and the samurai pauses, and he resheaths his sword and walks away. He's unable to complete the task because he feels anger in his heart, and because he feels anger in his heart, he cannot act as a perfect functionary in his role. He cannot avenge his lord's dishonor because he wouldn't have been acting. In that function, he would have been acting to serve his own anger over having been spat upon. I think that about sums it up.
And this right here is, if you want to understand anime, you need to understand this story. What makes the samurai strong is not his sword or his armor or his discipline. What makes the samurai strong and invincible is his dedication to his lord. So one thing that
or his code, that could be a code too, yeah.
And actually, that's where you find Musashi, Book of Five Rings, is as a Ronin, he no longer had a lord, so he had to find something, and his code made him invincible. And this is what you find in anime, that what gives the character invincibility is not they themselves. It's their dedication to something else. Sometimes this can be that they are a protector of somebody. And so as long as they are protecting that person, they are invincible. But the moment that person no longer needs protection, they lose all power.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a major, major trope in anime. So when Viral Journey brings this up about the heroic character that's invincible, their invincibility comes from their cause, not from themselves. They didn't create the invulnerability. It's their dedication to protecting the innocent, or to following the code, or to obeying their master that makes them invulnerable. Like our Western version is the paladin gets his power from God, but he cannot sin against God.
Right. Or we see that in the Arthurian myth in the figure of Lancelot. While he is true to his code, he is the perfect knight. He is the best knight. He is that which exemplifies heroic masculine virtue. And he's a perfect second function thane in service to his first function king. But when he succumbs to his mortal desire for Guinevere, he sinks into slavery. He literally sinks into a fourth function slave role, and he ceases to be virtuous. He ceases to be the best knight, and he falls from grace.
Actually, that's part of with One Punch Man. Have you seen One Punch Man, Hey Thrun?
No, I haven't.
It's this hilarious anime, this parody anime about a guy. It throws everything on its head. Okay, this is why it's a parody. So One Punch, it's this world that's constantly getting attacked by big monsters, and so there's like an official like group of heroes that fights the monsters, and of course all the fights happen in these big Japanese cities. One Punch Man decides to become a hero as part of a hobby, because why not? He's got nothing else going. He's a NEET, okay? He's got nothing going on in his life, so he's like, I guess I'll become a hero. Then with a very basic workout routine, like he doesn't do anything to become a hero. He just, 100 push-ups every day, 100 sit-ups, and I run 10 miles. That's it. And he becomes such an incredible badass that every single fight he gets into, he beats them with one punch. and now he's bored. He hates being One Punch Man. He's like, this is so boring. And he doesn't even want to be a superhero. And then nobody knows he's a superhero, right? He's just some weirdo wearing a yellow leotard.
Right.
And he gets this like guy that's just like, will you be my master and train me? He's like, I guess so. He comments in the first episode that he hasn't masturbated in 6 months because he's worried about tearing it off.
Hey, I just wanted to throw out a mention. This is regarding the Free Folk support link. We had to set up a new account, and I noticed, Aurini, you didn't update the link.
Oh,
so
shoot.
no, that's okay. I just want to let everybody know, because I don't want them sending to that link, because that's no longer active. So if you do want to support the Free Folk with a financial donation, I'm going to throw it into the chat again, so that everybody has the correct updated account.
So going back to the Marvel movies, and I know everyone loves to talk about Marvel movies, but I think I agree with Beckloff on this, that once this first generation of Captain America, Iron Man, and Thor retire after this movie, I think they're gonna milk a lot of the nostalgia money out of us. I know they have been for me. I just saw Venom this weekend, and I enjoyed it. A lot of people did, and in spite of the critic reviews, the audience reviews are great, but the whole shtick was getting kind of old for me. The whole just even the way Tom Hardy's voice is. It's not true to the Eddie Brock from the comics, because the Eddie Brock in the comics was like a hardcore lifter, and Tom Hardy is more like this. He has this like effeminate voice, this kind of Weasley voice, and it's one of the funniest lines from the movie is Venom says to Tom Hardy, like, I'm kind of a loser like you, so I'm gonna stay on this world with you, which It's really funny. It'll still be funny when you watch it. But anyway, it's getting old, and now they're gonna do what they did the Gamergate to Marvel movies. Um, they've just been setting it up, but you have Captain Marvel, you have the Wasp. You know, again, I'm not opposed to feminine heroes, but they're just gonna totally SJW it up. And I think,
could I point? I was going to point this out earlier with Eowyn.
yeah,
Is I absolutely love Eowyn, and you know the girls that I have fallen hardest for over the years have, well, two of them have actually been military women, and I absolutely love women that you can take out into the field and they don't break, and many of them actually do look quite feminine. I absolutely love those women. You know, I'm the big evil sexist that points out that women, like, they shouldn't serve in the military. It's terrible for them. But I absolutely love them. I absolutely love Eowyn. You know, what I kind of point out, it's like, listen, like, no, the sexes aren't equal. The sexes are not interchangeable. Nonetheless, I like that far right edge of the bell curve Eowyn. That's the sort of woman that gets my motor going.
Well, she really softens at the end of the story when she falls for Faramir.
Well, that's the other thing about the Eowyn women, is that because they've done a male job, they actually are more embracing of their womanly nature because they can do the man's job, but they also recognize how freaking different. They wind up with more respect for men. They appreciate masculinity all that much more, and they can be like, they don't have a chip on their shoulder saying, "Well, I could do that too." No, they have done that, and they can now choose to be feminine.
You know, she actually wasn't fated to be paired with Faramir initially. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah, I was reading an interview that somebody had done with Tolkien. This was many, many years ago that I read this, that he had initially intended to pair Eowyn with Aragorn. And if you read the books, I mean, that's really the love story is between the two of them. But he made a decision. He changed that towards the end of his writing because he couldn't resolve the generational difference. Because, of course, you know, Eowyn is a very young girl, probably her late teens, early 20s in the story. And Aragorn is 87 years old, and he's half elven. So he had to resolve the maturity difference between the two of them. And he did that by, of course, pairing Aragorn with Aurini. Aurini was an afterthought. I mean, that she's barely mentioned in the books, and that's the reason why he really did intend to pair Eowyn and Aragorn together.
I think he should have kept that.
I think so too. I agree.
Because, like, listen, 87 doesn't mean the same thing for Aragorn as it means for us.
Right. But he had the life experience of an 87-year-old. You know, 87 years of living and experiencing life was quite an extreme contrast to the experience of this young girl.
Well, it's, you know, there's this observation. I think it was by a philosopher initially. Women mature a lot faster than men.
Mm-hmm.
They usually tend to plateau around 17 to 21. They plateau around there. And the next real stage of mental development comes when they become pregnant and they become a mother. There's principled exceptions, but that's generally the pattern of the female life. Whereas a man, you don't even start to become a man until like 25, I think, is when you finally become a man, and 28 is when you get comfortable in your own skin.
Mm-hmm. What would the principled exceptions be, in your opinion?
Those dedicated to a higher power.
You don't think they go through a motherhood experience just in a different way?
I think they do. So
yeah.
Nuns and Valas would be the principled exception there.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, I see these things manifesting for all the functions. They just express themselves through the role of that function.
I was basically trying to phrase it in a way that wasn't insulting.
No, it's not insulting. I just like to be explicit because I know that the vast majority of people are third function people, so they see through a third function lens, and so they make certain assumptions. But that doesn't mean that it's not true for first and second function people. It just expresses itself in a different way. That's all.
I've heard it said that ideal world, a woman would be a man's last love and he would be her first love. Now that's mathematically impossible, but that's what people say would be ideal.
I can see that, actually.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
It's kind of tragic in a way, but I do see it.
Oh, well, there's nothing more tragic than love. If it didn't hurt so much, it wouldn't feel so good.
Yeah.
Very true. But I wanted to go back to Thanos. He is better compared to just the god awful character black hole that is Marvel movies. That Thanos has, enough character to be a really bad character in what used to be a good movie. Okay, so I think that's why, he's so much more likable, because if you look at, I think Loki was pretty good, but you had the other one like Ultron. I mean, you might as well just been saying, kill all humans the whole movie. You might as well just been not say anything. He had no character whatsoever. At least Thanos has to make that sacrifice of Gamora, and show some the dimensionality to him. Also,
Yeah,
what's cool in the red
dimensionality. Like Thanos seems to actually be a character with an arc.
Yeah, he lost his own world. Ultron was just kind of a computer virus that kept, that just went bad. And Loki has a decent backstory, because he's a frost giant who is fighting with his own nature, and kind of how he feels about living in Asgard. There's some character there. Hawkeye has more character than the other people. But yeah, what you said about Iron Man's secret powers being cool, which is Gnosticism, which is hidden knowledge, and that's what Marvel is. You have to get secret knowledge, like Doctor Strange, or you have to get a radioactive spider bite, or you have to get super soldier serum.
Right. It's like, in theory, it's Tony Stark's a genius, but the U.S. military should only be 5 years behind him making an Iron Man suit.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that nobody else can make the Iron Man suit means that it's secret knowledge. They have to actually steal an Iron Man suit from him to have an Iron Man of their own.
Right. In the real world, I don't know. I don't know exactly the first, second, and third function, but I mean, all those people can be actualized. Versus in the Marvel universe, they're just waiting to be saved. Which even the Marvel universe pisses off liberals, because it points towards elites and elitism, but I don't know how to.
It's the elitism that they believe in. They don't believe. Here's the thing. It's certainly with Christianity. Third function people can be saints.
Right.
They are still third function people. I was saying to you before the chat that I suspect my priest might be a saint. And if the guy ever tried to perform a miracle, I think he could. I think he's way too humble to even try, but I think he could.
Well, that doesn't mean that a miracle might not be performed through him.
Oh, well, he does have some graces.
Because oftentimes holy folk act as involuntary. Well, I shouldn't say involuntary. That is not appropriate. Unintentional vessels. I mean, they're voluntary in the sense that they've dedicated themselves, to the service of their deity, and in that way they consent to being used for that purpose. But they may not intend what comes through them. You know what I mean?
Tell you what, if my longsword ever lights up with white fire, we're putting that on the record for this priest. Okay, he's the one that blessed it.
Okay. Noted. Going into the journal. Yes.
So what was good about the Marvel universe when it was good was when you're growing up in suburbia, in this mental prison that is modernity, you could have these thought experiments and these fantastical escapisms into being Peter Parker, Spider-Man. Beckloff, I caught him mentioning, so the three good villains for Spider-Man was Dr. Octopus was like the evil Peter Parker, the nerd in him. Um, Venom is the evil Spider-Man, which is his, his Chad self. And then Green Goblin, I forgot what he said. I think Green Goblin was like evil Uncle Ben. So you have actual archetypes and actual like character thought experiments versus now you just kind of have, okay, well, we have to make Black Panther or else, we're not going to get enough black people to pay for movie tickets.
Yeah, I think I know what you're saying. The movies, they're dumbing things down for the narcissistic culture. And I'm not trying to attack the Marvel comic books either. Like you could attack any creative work as falling short if you wanted to, if you're a really nasty, spiteful person. And there is a lot of virtue in those comic books. Like honestly, a lot of the Spider-Man, the narrative there, with great power comes great responsibility. These are wonderful truisms.
Mm-hmm.
There are truisms at the core of Marvel and DC comic books. And so just because I'm criticizing the what's happened to the movies doesn't mean I'm trying to say the whole thing is garbage and you're bad for liking it. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. VRL Journey since
it's not garbage, but it is getting, I don't know how much longer superhero movies can hold up. It's amazing they've held up for so long, but as they retire this first generation, I just don't know. I don't know.
I have some thoughts about that after Aurini reads the super chat.
Yes, VRL Journey sends US $2 and comments, Black Widow is the anti-Eowyn. Thoughts?
Oh, yes, my thoughts. I was about to say, what I see happening in the culture, and I think this is related to these Marvel movies, even though I haven't seen them, I'm listening to what you're saying about them, is that we've become a culture of empty calories, empty boxes and empty calories across the entire spectrum. We consume food that is devoid of nutrition, but we're also consuming media, we're consuming education, we're consuming all sorts of things that are mental, spiritual in nature that have absolutely no nutrition in them whatsoever. And they cause the same result, right? There's this sort of emotional, mental, and spiritual obesity that correlates with the physical obesity and a weakness as well, the mental, emotional, and spiritual weakness that accompanies that too. So yeah, what's happening in the higher or what's happening in the lower is happening in the higher as well.
Well, I think what Viral Journey said there is very apt, because now there's a complex history to Black Widow in the comic books, but in the movies, Black Widow is just some hot chick that can beat up Russian gangsters. That she doesn't afraid of anything. She's invulnerable. Yet at the same time, she's this I need a man to love me, even though I'm alpha. She is the anti-Eowyn. Eowyn earns her place as a warrior, but yet she embraces the feminine. Black Widow does not earn her place as a warrior. She just is, and she's never truly feminine.
Now, sorry. Now Black Panther has an interesting thought experiment going on that I don't know if you guys caught this. Maybe you didn't watch it, but basically the protagonist, T'Challa, is African, while the bad guy is Killmonger. He's in the royal bloodline, but he's
a Meramut.
Right. He's American. He's an American black, essentially, and that and he's the one. The revolution won't be televised. Will be televised. So that's that's interesting. And I think I might be wrong, but I think the original Black Panther comic was coined before Black Panther movement was started. I might be wrong, but I think
I believe you're correct. They aren't related, regardless.
Yeah. The other thing I was just going to add to the observations that I made a moment ago was that, of course, what coincides with obesity in the vast majority of cases is starvation, because although these people are, quite physically large, they're absolutely starved for nutrients. And the same thing is happening intellectually, emotionally, and spiritually within the culture. People are getting fat on all of this garbage content, but they are absolutely starved for the nutritional content that would uplift them and help them to be strong and healthy and make the best of their lives.
But it's coming back.
We're doing that. That's what this is all about. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're here to provide the nutrition, the mental, emotional, and spiritual nutrition.
And people are seeing it. It's the right time for it.
Yeah. And thank you, everybody who's supporting us. We all appreciate it very much. Thank you.
You can't move against the tides of history. I mean, it's so funny that the left loves to scream, it's the current year. It's, you're living. No. Left, you're living in the past. This is why you're terrified of us. You've already won, and yet you are terrified of these scrappy underdogs. It's because you know what's coming. Watchman 12 asked earlier, so many people are talking about how romantic love is destroying one's psyche, and he asked for our thoughts about this. And guys, I think that first of all, I am a romantic. All right, romantic love is so beautifully painful and tragic, and it's just absolutely great.
And we love you for it.
But the mind must rule the passions.
Mm-hmm.
I recently broke up with a woman I'd been dating for quite a long time, and that I loved very, very deeply. And I really hope she finds what she's looking for, because she has so many wonderful qualities. But romantic love was not sufficient to overcome the major differences that we had. I think the problem with romantic love is when you mistake it for the only truth. It's a form of truth. Beauty is a form of truth. It's not the only truth. Like a lot of the beta orbiters out there will see a beautiful woman on Instagram and they will mistake the beauty for virtue. Just because a woman's beautiful does not mean that she's virtuous. Okay, beauty is but one form of truth.
Women do the same when they see powerful men, or very very vigorous men, aggressive men. They project
the heat radiating through his clothes.
Right, the heat radiating through his clothes. They project their wishes onto that, just as a man projects his fantasies onto a beautiful woman. You've got to find out what's there. You've got to turn over those stones and find out what you really have. And in addition to that, you have to find out if it's compatible with where you are on your path. Do you deserve each other? Are you worthy of each other on all levels? It's important.
Yeah, and this woman, as wonderful as she was, didn't want to go where I was going. And on a certain level, she wanted to have a cage in her front lawn with a white lion in it. It's not what I am. And that's not, I would have been betraying everything I am. Don't get me wrong, I would have enjoyed it for a while. I think we both would have hated each other in about 5-10 years. And we probably wouldn't have gotten divorced either. We would have just been miserable with each other.
Mm.
But yeah, romance will not replace compatibility. Okay, you got to think with your big head, not the little head, as your elders used to say. Welchman 12 sends US $2, says thank you for answering. Appreciate it, brother. And Viral Journey sends US $5. In old tales, romantic love rarely ends well. Cough Iliad, cough Romeo and Juliet.
That's right. That's right.
These stories were trying to point out that, listen, romantic love is wonderful and fun. It's great. It's not everything. John C. Wright points out that heresy, what heresy generally is you take one element of reality and say, this is the absolute, wonderful, best truth of all things. All things must be measured by this thing right here.
Well, Plato gave us the model with his tripartite theory of the soul. The spirited and appetitive aspects of the soul must submit to the logical and reasoning part of the soul if there is to be virtuous action. You know,
And
that image he gives us of the charioteer, uh, with the two horses drawing his chariot, the one being black and the other being white, and he has to keep them in balance. That's what it's all about.
in The Abolition of Man, C.S. Lewis points out in the chapter Men Without Chests, how we have this huge appetite of nature and this huge intellectual nature, but none of the spiritedness, none of the heart. That's where romance lies.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like Plato was saying, you need both of them. You've got this, look at the whole skeptic community. Well, you know what? I'll name it. Look at Thunderfoot, for crying out loud. That poor bastard thinks like he only values the intellectual. And the sad thing, he's not even that bright, like maybe an IQ of 120, 130 at most. He so overvalues that he doesn't value the spirited. He doesn't value, he misses out so much on life.
Oh, John Steele's in the chat. I haven't seen him
Yeah,
in a while.
Just sent him a link.
Oh, cool.
What's up, Steele? He doesn't value proper grooming.
What's this?
Thunderfoot.
Oh, okay.
Oh, he's such a sad case. He's such a tragic case. What a sad life he lives. And he's trying to be this prominent scientician with his debunk, and then he debunks a bunch of stuff he doesn't understand and makes an ass of himself. It's really sad. Steele, how's it going, brother?
Hey, good. Hello to everyone. How are you all doing?
Hey, John, doing well. Haven't heard from you in a while. How are you?
I'm very well. I think I missed you. I think you were in a call the other night, but I came in too late. I was speaking to Davis the other night.
Oh, okay. Sorry I missed you.
Yeah, I'm sorry I missed you too. Yeah, no, it's great. And sorry I didn't want to interrupt. You guys keep going. I don't want to interrupt your stream of consciousness there.
Jump in when you have something to say. Sefkrona Kriesgelard, I'm not pronouncing that correctly.
Oh, want me to help you out there? That's Seitherkona Krigsgalder. And I bet she's a practitioner of the arts as I am, because that's all Old Norse there.
She comments that she tried to date dominant men, and they were all leftist feminists too. Well, and that's, you know what? This is actually an important observation. A lot of these guys that say they're anti-feminist, they still want equality, because the traditional relationship places a lot of responsibility on the man. And it's a hell of a lot easier to be a feminist.
Oh, sure.
Well, that circles back to something that I think I had said to Davis and many other people that I had talked with on my streams and their streams, is this embracing of being the victim. I know what Hadrian, I mentioned this. I know I mentioned it to Davis before, that there has been this cultural shift, and like we're a little bit older. We're all 35 plus, I believe. When we were younger, being a victim was something. It was a label that you avoided like the plague. You know, maybe that was a healthy thing. You know, because showing weakness, I mean, you know, among animals or anything else, that means okay, you're the one that gets eaten by the lion. You know what I mean? You're the one that gets sacrificed for the tribe. You know what I mean? It's like this, you know, like when the gazelles get attacked by the lions. You know, it's always the sick, weakly one that gets caught.
It's served up for dinner.
Correct. And now it seems to be a shift where the strongest and the fastest are the ones that I don't know. Maybe someone else could elaborate on that. I think you know where I'm going with this. And
you know what? Society allows you to be weak and gives you all of these points for being weak. And you know what? Like, listen, weakness in men is letting your woman lead. Weakness in women is not letting your man lead, because you need to have like real faith to trust a man to lead, to let go of that power and give it to your man. And as a man, it is so daunting to take the leadership role, to be responsible in a relationship. And so we've got these women, these alpha girls, as you call them, Hadrian, that want to like control men all the time, and these men that just want to throw away their control and not be responsible.
Yeah, they want to be surrogate mothers to sexually mature yet emotionally and spiritually immature males because that is what reflects what they are. They're sexually mature but emotionally and spiritually immature. So like attracts like. That's why they're paired that way.
That's one of our big challenges, is pushing people into adulthood, basically. And
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
relates to what you're saying, Steele, that as a child, you are vulnerable, you are subjected, you are weak. And when you become an adult, you are supposed to be taking responsibility. But instead of having kids graduate high school and take responsibility, they then go and subject themselves to the university system. They get a student loan, they get, obey these policies and procedures, these best practices. They subject themselves and they are weak. And it's like an arms race to point out who is the weakest one, because the weakest one gets the most support from toxic mommy and daddy.
Yeah, I love that you use that phrase "arms race" because it actually has become that, but in a bizarro world. You know what I mean? Arms race used to mean that both sides were getting stronger and stronger and stronger, and now it seems that everybody's doing the opposite, where they're kind of trying to show how weak they are. Like getting weaker and weaker, and who is the more victim, who has the least amount of quote unquote privilege.
Well, that's because it's incentivized. I mean, it's being celebrated and rewarded by the host culture, so that's why they're doing it.
Well, can I ask you this, Adrian, because you're probably the most empathic of any of us here. Do you believe that this started with women, or it started with men, or it was
started with men? It started with men, because men are the ones who built civilization. They are the ones who literally won it for themselves through their courage, their intellect, their industry, etc. And therefore, they were the keepers of it. And at some point, they made the conscious decision to bequeath it to those who did not earn it. Whether it was women, whether it was children, whether it was lesser men, whether it was strangers, they made that decision.
By the way, US $1 from Wojman12. Thank you very much, brother. You know what? I'll tell you how it happened. And I've noticed this meme propagating. I'm so glad to hear this. What happened is that a certain group of bankers started two massive wars that the European race got involved in. And those two massive wars killed off a significant percentage of our alphas. And with the alphas, the alphas either dead or psychologically recovering from the war, the betas took over, the weaklings took over. And those weaklings failed to be what a leader needs to be. And they're the ones that guided women down this primrose path. There was a movie I saw years ago. It was this terrible French-Canadian movie. But it was about this dirty, smelly hippie that first he seduces the daughter, and then he seduces the mother. And then the father is left like sitting in downtown Montreal or whatever, just like confused at how the world has changed from what he grew up with, that alpha males aren't respected. It's like dirty, smelly, homeless hippies that, fuck his daughter and his wife. And at the very end, the hippie says to the daughter, or to one of the women, he says to her, "Did you really expect me to turn into a prince when you kissed this frog?" And that the movie was over.
I just had a comment I was going to make regarding the previous point. The reason why the betas then gave all that power to the women, because betas are naturally approval seeking. They seek the approval of women. Whereas an alpha male, he doesn't seek anybody's approval. He follows his own path. He's on a mission. He's got his compass needle pointed true north. And the women flock to him because they recognize his dominance and they trust him to look after them and their offspring, etc. But the betas, they're trying to cater favor.
$5 from John Steele. Thank you, brother.
I support quality content providers.
Thank you, Steele. We appreciate it.
It's the cuttlefish. It is the cuttlefish, where the beta male cuttlefish makes himself look pretty, makes himself look effeminate, and tries to mislead all the females while the alpha cuttlefish is actually defending the harem.
Mm-hmm.
And NWO Dispatcher, great name by the way, sends US $5 and says, "Hopefully the millennial hero generation are studying the world they inherited. They will need to lead Generation Zyklon into self-actualization." You know what?
I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be. No, sorry, Davis.
I think it's going to be us leading them.
Yeah,
but
I was going
ahead.
to say, I don't think it's going to be the millennials. I could be wrong on this. I mean, there's no way to know. I don't think it's going to be the millennials. I really don't think it's going to be the millennials. I believe that, and I know he's referring to the turning thing, the four.
No, the fourth turning.
Yes, that's what he's referring to for those who don't know. And you know that's a theory. Okay, it's not proven. You know, I mean, there's some truth to it. I did read about it years ago. I don't think it's going to be the millennials doing it. I really don't. But you know, we'll see. I could be proven wrong.
I think it's going to be the Generation Xers like ourselves, because I mean we're all Gen Xers here except for Bombadil, I think, who are probably going to be leading any of the generations coming up behind us, because we're the ones who were the survivors. I mean, many of the millennials, not all, but many of them have just been crushed under the wheels of their circumstances, whereas many Generation Xers, yeah, we went through some really hard times, but we had enough stuff, enough moral integrity that we learned to survive that. So I think we're in a better position to lead than many of the millennials are.
Well, I think we still have a remembrance in the collective unconsciousness of our generation of what things used to be like. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that too. Yeah, we grew up with some traditions. There were still traditions and culture, remnants of them that were left, like in the 70s. We still had some of that.
So when we were like little kids, we can.
Yeah, even into like I think the first half of the 80s. It really wasn't until the late 80s that it really started to die off.
I'll tell you what I see happening. The Gen X, we're the nomads. We are the survivors, and we are the leaders. The millennials, they're the heroes, they're the soldiers, they're the fighters. And Zyklon, they are the artists. So the past 10 years has been nothing but these online battles between SJWs and skeptics and right-wingers and whatnot. That is the millennials fighting. And they were mostly fighting for very bad leaders. What we're seeing come up with Zyklon, these guys aren't soldiers. These guys are artists. So look at Nick Fuentes. Technically speaking, he is still a millennial, but he's on that cusp of Zyklon. And he is not fighting per se. He's creating art. He's telling stories. You know, these high school kids coming up right now they are so damn sarcastic with the left-wing narrative. The millennials fought against SJWs, while the Zyklon, they make poetry out of it. They make art, they make stories, they laugh, they tell jokes. And that's what Zyklon, what they are going to do is really just completely destroy the narrative of the left by making fun of it.
Well, that's powerful. I mean, that's the shaman's power, the artist's power, to transform through expression.
I love Zyklon. I love watching these guys.
Mm-hmm.
You're careful about that. You love the Zyklon generation. You don't necessarily. We're not talking about the gas here. We're talking
the delousing agent. Yes,
the delousing agent. Just, you know, because YouTube has gone, you know, not just YouTube, but all these, it's gone ape shit, you know.
Yeah. Delousing agent, right.
Yeah, I talked to Hadrian offline about that. I was like, you really got to be careful because you never know what's going to trigger one of these parrot-haired freaks who are, you know, is in charge of censorship at Google, you know. As Davis refills his drink, I can hear the ice in the glass.
Hey, that's part of the brand. That's part of the brand of the show.
Yeah. Well, actually, one of the reasons I love Davis's channel in the old days, I don't know if Hadrian went back and watched some of like his earlier stuff.
There was a few. Yeah, there was a few.
This is before Davis and I.
Your first impression was, who is this asshole?
Pretty much. I was like, wow, this guy's over the top. I gotta check this out. That's right.
No, I think Davis. Go ahead.
No, the clinking and the cigarette lighter sound.
Yeah,
was
the Zippo. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
but
the exhalation, you know, that's what it was. It was all
Yeah.
all that virility. It drew me in. It was speaking to my loins.
your loins.
My
Okay.
loins. There
Your
we go.
loins.
Catherine doesn't even like smokers, but she likes it when
I
I.
did not say that. I have no problem with smokers. I just happen to be highly allergic to cigarette smoke.
What about cigars?
Cigars also. Yeah.
Oh, really? That
Yeah.
sucks.
Yeah. I know it sucks, but yeah, unfortunately. Although Davis, he claims that he smokes a certain type of organic cigar. Bombadil, can you mute, please? Thank you. That he smokes an organic type of cigar that doesn't have any chemicals in it. So he wants me to be in the presence of him when he's smoking one of these to see if I have a negative reaction to it.
Well, in fairness, when guys smoke cigars, that's supposed to be a male activity. It used to be like cognac and cigars.
Well, here's the thing. Like, if I wasn't sensitive to it, I'd probably smoke a cigar on occasion because I think it would sort of fit my my idiom. But yeah, I can't tolerate it.
Yeah, one of the
Unfortunately.
first jazz albums I bought had this picture of this chick smoking a cigar. God, she was foxy.
Yeah, isn't that sexy? Like a woman with a cigar and, you know, a dram of whiskey in her glass, and
It goes back. Well, and yeah, she actually had a snifter of brandy and she was smoking a cigar.
now I do drink high-end Scotch whiskey in proper Glencairn glasses, so I do have that.
Steal it.
What's that?
Whenever you can steal it.
I don't steal it. The gentlemen in my gaming group bring scotch to my house and are kind enough to share it with me.
Now, I gotta ask this question. I'm sorry to have to interrupt, but she said, how many years are we talking here? How old is the scotch?
Oh, the scotch? Let's see. The Lagavulin would be 16 in most cases. We have had some scotch that's been a bit older than that. Varies, I would say, between 8 and, well, yeah, 16 on average.
All right. Well, scotch should be aged at least 12 years.
Yeah.
Minimum 12. Now, because now you have the 25 that's become common now.
I know.
They
But
have a 25
some of the favorites that are often shared here at my Tuesday night game table are Lagavulin 16, Ardbeg Ugadal. What else have we had? We've had the regular Ardbeg. We've had the Corvecian. We've had Glenlivet. We've had Highland Park. We've had Talisker. I'm not a big fan of Talisker.
Our signature blend is double distilled and aged in 2 select barrels, resulting in notes of toasted grains, oak, rich toffee, and a smooth, enduring finish.
So you're turning me on with that talk.
That's my Wisers. This is what Clary calls my weasel whiskey.
Well, do you like? Because people have different tastes when it comes to scotch.
I like a
or
peaty, like very.
You like the peat? You like
the peat and the smoke. My favorite that I've tried so far is probably, well, it's a toss up between the Ardbeg Ugadal and the Lagavulin Distillers Edition. Both are excellent.
Well, you guys might make fun of me for this, but I actually love Glenfiddich.
Okay.
I don't know
Oh,
what.
I like that quite a bit too. I can't afford it, but I like it.
Yeah, there's something about that. I don't know how many years it's aged. Actually, someone want to Google that?
I'll have to
By the way,
ask.
we got Viral Journey sends a $2 super chat. Says my generation is a heroic laughingstock, and
That was good, buddy. Viral Journey. That was a good line, man. I like that.
Now you guys are making me thirsty for some good scotch.
Yeah, only the good stuff, though. You know?
See, hey, you guys got to send more super chats so that I can afford to buy, so I can afford to buy a bottle of scotch. If Aurini is kind enough to share, huh?
I said some of the super chats go to Haythroom's Whiskey Fund.
Thank you guys.
We got $20.
Whiskey fund. Put some whiskey in my jar.
I wish the stop naming generations. It's further breaking the vertical connection of past, present, and future. Traditional makes each generation thinks it's disconnected. No, they work in tandem. It's a sine wave, right? It's not a digital representation. It's all blocky. No, it's a sine wave. They got to blend together, and it's like the peak and the trough are part of the same thing. You know, the hero generation and the and the nomad generation and the artist generation, the prophet generation, they are all part of the same cycle. They need one another. The fact that they're so divorced one another is what's destroying the harmony.
Yeah, this atomization has just got to go. It's
Yeah,
another one.
I think you're just trying to say there's a symbiosis that is supposed to go on, but it's not now
Yeah.
because everything's so dysgenic.
Well, that's why we're folk building. You know, that's why we're doing this. And oh, I can't wait to get the new website up. It's coming along, guys. I have been I've been working with our folks here laboriously, pulling that together. So.
Yeah, I put all your links when I interviewed you in my description, so we'll want to get.
You did. I'm just updating
on that,
What's
guys.
that?
There is some stuff happening with the free folks. So
yeah. Do you want to tell them about what you're planning? Was it next month?
Well, it's next week.
Or next week. I'm sorry, next week. Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
then you should.
We are having an online moot for those that are interested. We are starting small, folks, but we are starting.
Yeah. So if you're interested in that, that's going to be what, the 13th?
13th.
13th.
Online moot.
Aurini's going to be leading that. So if you're interested in that, email us at the Free Folk website, and we will get you an email. Aurini will send that out to you and get you on the list.
Oh, I believe, guys, I've been doing a lot of work. I've got a couple of requested videos I really need to get to. It's been a rough week for me, guys. Not going to complain about my problems. Just been
Yeah. Stop making excuses for slacking, Davis. All right, I won't.
Well, I've also been working on a few other things. Like, we are doing this properly. We're doing this organized. We are doing this smart.
Yes.
No, I do know you have another thing that you didn't want to talk about publicly going on in your world right now that takes up a lot of your time, but I was just kind of teasing you. But still, no excuse for slacking.
You know, like, all I'm going to say that I mentioned way earlier in the stream that the left has this network. Like, they've taken all the big voices on the right, and they've built this network of them. Wouldn't it be interesting if somebody on our side was working on an information technology to draw spatial relationships between abstract ideas? Wouldn't that be a useful skill for our side?
It would.
I wonder.
Yeah, exactly. So, guys, I'm working on a lot of things right now, and a lot of it's you're not going to see what's happening just yet, but it is going to bear fruit. We are building this garden. We are planting seeds right now.
Yes.
I wanted to touch on a comment from Pegging Representative, and he mentions Lauren Southern and the trad tots and whatnot. And guys, like, listen, for me, it's really frustrating seeing the trad tots get ridiculous amounts of funding because they're pretty girls. It really frustrates me in a certain manner because I have to work 10 times as hard as them. At the same time, they are not our enemies. Lauren Southern is doing good goddamn work. Same thing with is Pettibone the one running for mayor in Toronto?
No, that's Faith Goldie.
Faith Goldie. Again,
are her lips for real? They look like they're like collagen.
Stop.
I'm sorry.
Anyway, Davis, keep going, please.
You know, I retweeted her. Right now, she's launching a lawsuit against a media organization in Toronto for screwing her over.
Okay.
And I retweeted that. I'm a little bit hesitant because on the one side, it's like, God damn it, these girls make so much money doing. But I support what she's doing. Okay? I'd like to see a little bit less thirst, but the world.
Now who should be told to stop?
The thirst is real, man. I'm sorry.
Thirst is real.
The thirst is real, and reality is reality. And you know what? These girls are doing good goddamn work. So,
well, I would say like Southern. Like, I don't follow Faith Goldie. Southern, I think that some of her work was good. But
Faith Goldie is down in Vegas doing that documentary on the shooter, isn't she?
No, I think you're thinking of.
Is that Pettibone?
No, Pettibone doesn't do anything. She's just arm candy of the. I can't remember. Some European guy. Brittany Pet My Bone is she doesn't to be honest, she doesn't really produce any content. Lauren Southern does. I'll give her that. Lauren Southern, it seems like she's got a real good work ethic. I mean, she went to, she traveled. She went to South Africa. She did what she did. She traveled and the whole bit. I mean, look, Davis, if you were a good-looking woman with, who was 22 with, nice tits, you'd get a four. It's all about the pay gap, is what it is. We got to do something. We got to write a congressman about this pay gap thing going on here. It's not fair. I tell you that men make online YouTube men make 1/10 of what female YouTube men who are in this sphere of the internet.
Actually, guys in their early 20s make 70% of what women do.
Female YouTube men.
Female YouTube. Is that what I said?
That's what you said.
Yeah. Well, in fairness, I think that is an actual demographic nowadays.
It probably is, and I don't. Yeah. Maybe I should look into getting in on that if that's where the money is, right?
That's one of the 78 genders.
Okay, then I'll start identifying as that so I can really bring in the shekels.
So my point with pegging, and I'm not going to read the rest of his comment. He talks about somebody else who's cucked a couple of times. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying that no need to throw shade upon our allies. Like these Lauren Southern, whoever these, again, I don't really follow them. They're doing good work. No reason to hate them. All right, the thirst is real. Deal with reality. And the same thing, everybody you can point to on the right, they've cucked in some manner. There's something they've done that you don't like. But let's not give ammunition to our enemies. One thing I've never spoken about, I might have spoken about it. I'm going to touch on this briefly. That film project that I was involved in way back in the day, what happened with that is January 2015, is when there was a lot of opposition. First of all, we had to have a conversation with the guy that the owner of Patreon phoned us up, and we had a 3-way telephone conversation because he was getting heavy pressure to cancel the project from the SJWs. And we spoke to him and had a conversation no, this is not going to be personal attack. This is going to be free speech, etc. That we had to overcome that hurdle, and then there were other hurdles. But then in January, what happened is that the SJWs started attacking emotionally. So anytime you hear that, how many skulls, Aurini, that was the wonderful meme that the SJWs invented. This is what really ticked me off when Shoe on Head started using that. I'm like, that was an SJW insult. You're using their insult that was trying to destroy this movie. Anyway, the SJW showed up attacking me, trying to make these personal attacks on my psychology. It didn't work. They also showed up on my partner's channel, making personal attacks on his psychology, saying, why are you associating with an evil Nazi? And those attacks worked. They cracked his emotions. They took control of his brain. They managed to do that. So guys, we don't need to give them enemies. Yeah, everybody's made a mistake at some point. All right? We got to be allies to one another and not have petty, vindictive, nasty arguments that go on and on and on and on and do nothing but spread division.
There are more people deserving of your efforts than attacking thoughts.
Exactly. Like whomever it is.
Trad thoughts, whatever you want.
Anybody in these circles that's done something to piss you off, not worth attacking them. Save your ammunition for the real enemies. We can have disagreements, okay? We can have debates. Let's not stoop to using insults. Because when you start insulting people, that's a whole nother, that's nuclear option.
Anyway, Viral Journey sent another $10, Davis. You want to read it or should I?
Yes, I got it. Thoughts wouldn't even bother with this crap if the men were more courageous. The most high-status man won't even tell a woman her uncorroborated rape fantasy is BS. And also $1 from Woachman, who's just supporting the ongoing chat.
That's for my whiskey jar, right?
Yeah.
You get that $1 doing that. And that's for the Glenfiddich, by the way.
That's gonna buy me what, like a thimbleful of.
Yeah, you could like dip your pinky in finish.
The lady has expensive taste, folks. So,
Yeah, I do. Like a bottle of Lagavulin like $100.
Well, you know, it's a true story. When I was teething as a baby, my mother told me this years and years ago that she used to rub whiskey on my gums.
It works.
Oh,
Yeah.
She
It
said no.
does.
She said it worked. I said when she told me, I was like, well, this is like old Irish. You know, she's born in the old country. You know, and I was like, nowadays, like they'd probably, you know, CPS would show up at your doorstep if you did that. And she's like, I was like, how did I react? She goes, no. She said you liked it. You went, you know, and you know, and you stopped crying. I was like, really? She goes, yeah.
I used to have okay, way back in the day, I was dating a single mom. Yeah, guys, I know. And, but like her kid, she had the cutest kid, and the kid would like wake up and ask what the beer caps were, and like now the beer caps had a rooster on them, okay, and I told her that the bottles were for Go Juice, and that was the Go Rooster. And then she grabbed a whiskey bottle and like got a little bit, like there's just a little remnant of whiskey and tasted it. She's like, yeah, it tastes good. The Go Rooster makes you go.
So your mom, Steele, she was like the she corrupted you and provided you like the gateway into the world of alcohol, right? Is he there? He drop out.
Actually, there was a comment from Abba Okoro.
Oh, okay.
Davis doesn't run this free folk thing, and it's brother, it's not an organization. Nobody runs it.
Yeah, it's not an organization. It is founded upon the structure of the elder Germanic tribal system. You can look it up, the trifunctional system.
I mean, I run this YouTube channel, but even here, it's a very light touch, right? I don't like banning people. And Bombadil, dicks out for Bombadil. He does a great job moderating without being a prick.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tom, for being such a great mod.
Thanks, guys. I know Abba. I've been on a group chat with him before, so I respect that. But I'm just like, dude, bring it up in private messaging if you're really concerned.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure Aurini will be happy to address any questions or concerns that you have.
Well, and Abba brought up another one. The sympathizing with paganism is suspect in nature. I agree. I've had a lot of spiritual challenges lately. I was mentioning my priest earlier, and I think the man might be a saint. At the same time, I mean, no disrespect with this. Like I go to this guy for confession, okay? He's third function. I brought up the recent issue with the catechism to him, and afterwards, I really regretted bringing that up to him because that's not what he does, okay? What this guy does is when you go to confession, he sees into your soul, and you're confessing some sin like over there in left field, and he's like, do you have, you've got some issues with your father, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And it's like, boom, like, yes, how did you know that? This guy's amazing.
Okay, yeah, it's a discernment that
that's actually the name of the grace is discernment. Yeah, as spiritual eyes that see into your soul.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think we should be clear for people who have concerns is to be clear, Davis is still a Catholic. Okay.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
We're not, and I don't know how public I can be about this, David. Well, no, I'll just say my thoughts because it's not about you. I am in no way trying to convert Davis to my belief. Davis, you can back me up on this, right? I mean,
yes, and actually, Hey Thrun has done quite a bit to. There have been major challenges to my faith with what the Pope is doing and the recent revelations about the massive child molestation. Hey Thrun's been bolstering my faith. My point talking about my priest is the guy is absolutely amazing. He's not a theologian. He's not a strategist. He doesn't think on this level. This guy thinks on the individual level. He cares about the individual. Okay, he is absolutely amazing at what he does. But my problems with what's happening in the catechism, that is beyond his ken. That is not what he's there for. And I really don't have anybody to talk to about this. I have Hey Thrun.
And I have been doing my best to support Aurini within his faith, without imposing in any way my faith upon him, but working within his faith and his worldview.
And you notice one thing, that if you listened into that Red Pill Religion stream that you were on recently, Hey Thrun, with Dean Esme, with Max Dean and Esme.
Yeah, that was a wonderful conversation. I really enjoyed it. And you guys
Really?
no, you guys, seriously, you guys should check it out. I thought it was a good conversation.
Well, I wouldn't call it necessarily a conversation, but
Okay. Interview.
well, they never shut the fuck up. So it was
No, not
our live stream.
no. Esme interviewed me on Friday.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, just this past Friday.
I thought you were talking about what Dean Esme and John C. Wright were on.
No. I appeared on Red Pill Religion this Friday, and Max treated me to a wonderful interview, and it was a great conversation. And I would strongly recommend that anybody who's interested in listening to a Catholic and a heathen Vala talk about theology, philosophy, faith, history, all of that, go ahead and check it out.
Yeah, if Tom could put that link in the chat, it'd be cool for other people to check it out.
Yeah, Tom, can you drop that in there?
He'll have to search for it.
Dean Esme said, or Max Dean Esme. I keep calling him Dean Esme.
Max, yeah, I know, yeah.
Which is it? I didn't know he had a name.
He prefers Max. He prefers Max.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but was Dean Esme a handle, not his real name?
No, he's in a different place in his life. He's adopting a different moniker, but it is his name.
Okay, yeah. No, I was just curious if I was all right.
Yeah, but Aurini, you wanted to make some point about.
And one thing that Esme's been repeatedly saying, I think he said it on our stream, he said it on this stream with you, is like, hey, Thrun, you sound a lot like Aquinas.
Yes, he has made that remark. And Aristotle, too. Yeah.
Yeah, but Davis, we had this discussion last night. Sorry to jump in, but we just had...
Hey, let me finish. Let me finish.
All right.
What really makes the Catholic Church, and the thing that it breaks my heart that Protestants miss, Protestants have thrown out Aristotle. Aristotle is the one that made the Catholic Church, that made it so beautiful. And everybody here is Aristotelian. Now, there's a theological argument that we're not going to have over which came first, the Aristotelian metaphysics or the Christian church. There's a massive argument there. But what really makes truth is Aristotle. Plato was not truth. Plato was engineering. Okay, it was philosophical engineering. Aristotle's the one that pulled it all together and made something beautiful. Mm-hmm. And everybody here is Aristotelian.
Yeah, I mean, he asked me a great question during that interview, and I really do recommend that your listeners check it out. He asked me, how do I square the circle between my heathen belief and my obvious, as he put it, Aristotelian, or my interest in Aristotelian philosophy? And I said, because they're the same. They align. When you strip away all the aesthetic that one can apply to culture or language or what have you, it's the same respect of natural law. It's the same respect of universal ethics. It's the same principles that are there that bind those two together.
By the way, super chat from VRL Journey.
Can I read it?
Yes, please.
Because it mentions your name, so I wanted to read it. All right, Viral Journey sends $5. Thank you. Very generous man, Viral Journey. Okay, but if Aurini doesn't learn the Blood Eagle by next fall, I rescind my support. Viral Journey, I agree with you.
Now,
you just wanted to say Blood Eagle on Aurini's show. I know that's what it was.
Exactly.
Because you paid, what, $100 for the privilege a couple of weeks
back.
I have
paid for the right to say Blood Eagle on Aurini's live stream.
And I'm sorry for not listen, John C. Wright is one of my big personal heroes, so I'm not claiming it's the best live stream ever, but...
No, it wasn't your best.
No, I need to explain something. I'm a Catholic. We don't Blood Eagle. I'm sorry to disappoint. We don't Blood Eagle. The Catholic tradition is that we break on the wheel.
Hey, we could do both.
That was good, David.
The Platonic metaphysics and Aristotelian metaphysics, what it boils down is to rhetoric. Okay, what Aristotle did is he brought rhetoric into things. Now, I think that the difference between rhetoric on the one hand and grammar and logic on the other hand, which is what Plato did, is it's the same as the difference between the left brain and the right brain, where the left brain is all logic and grammar. The right brain is rhetoric. It's emotion and meaning and instinct. Okay, it's the masculine half and the feminine half of the mind. And the problem with Platonic metaphysics, the problem that you get with the Protestant church is that it's Platonic, it's literalist, it's logical, but there's no rhetoric, there's no magic.
Yeah.
The magic comes from the rhetoric when rhetoric is built off of logic and grammar. You need both halves to things. And the magic of the Catholic Church is that it has the rhetoric and it has the logic. Okay?
Well, we have that in heathenry too.
Which is why, oh, good Lord, people are going to be angry about this. I have more in common with heathens than I have with Protestants. Because the Protestants reject and revile the rhetoric. They want their magic to be literal magic. Right? Like look at the arguments between the evolutionists and the creationists. Both of them are materialist. The evolutionists they say everything is material, the material is everything. The creationists say that everything is the Bible is everything. The Bible is material, material is true. None of them understand the rhetoric. Okay? It was St. Augustine, his interpretation of Genesis was evolution. You can look this up. Augustine he read Genesis and said, you know what? Obviously God started the life cycle with the smallest germs of life, and those germs grew more complex over time until they became man. That's evolution. That's rhetoric. That's magic.
Well, there's just something I'll add to that, because that observation that you just made, or rather quoted, that was someone else's observation. I've made this similar observation that I've been talking about more and more on podcasts, which is this evolution of mindedness from what I've identified as the feminine, which is the default mindedness of every organism, and all the way up to this masculine mindedness that we've now seen in the K-selected species. And I would argue that there's yet a higher mindedness that there's a divine mindedness that we are capable of attaining, that we're in the process actually through this great spiritual struggle that we're all immersed in right now. It's like, what a wonderful time to be alive, that we're striving to attain, and I think can attain and will attain.
Absolutely. And it's my problem with the materialist evolutionists is that they fail to notice that there's this higher striving. There's this place, this empty space that's just waiting for evolution to come fill it. So yes, it's a purely physical mechanism, but it's a mechanism driving towards something that, like an opportunity that was waiting. It was waiting.
Yeah.
Evolution is just waiting for intelligent, sapient species to appear. It's waiting for that. It's like please fill this gap.
And we see that manifested in the trifunctional social structure that the Indo-Europeans observed, and those of us who still practice that today still observe. The third function is femininely minded. The second function is masculinely minded. The first function is divinely minded. You see that reflected in the class system.
And another thing about the Catholic Church that this is some of my early, again, guys, I'm not a theologian, okay? I'm a soldier. But part of being this type of soldier is studying theology. So don't expect any of the final answers from me. I'm not going to write a book on this. It's not my job. It's somebody else's job. Maybe Bombadil will do this. But one of the things, 1200 changed the Catholic Church. The Black Death changed the Catholic Church. And that was a judgment from God, by the way. The Catholic Church did a lot of great and wondrous things. It really nailed down by the way, it nailed down a theology that even pagans can agree with, for the most part. With the arrival of the Black Death, the Catholic Church lost its absolute, you could call it tyranny even. For 1,200 years, the Catholic Church was granted tyranny over Europe because Europe was such a shit show that it needed a tyrant. The same way in Rome, when things went to shit, there would be a temporary tyrant elected to control things for that period of shit show. And for 1,200 years, Europe was a shit show, and we got the Catholic Church. And then with the Black Death, that changed things a lot. They altered the catechism, actually, to acknowledge the fact that you did not need a priest to receive last rites. Prior to the Black Death, you needed a priest. Post-Black Death, you don't need a priest.
Yeah, but Davis, that was a matter of practicality because all the priests were dead.
How do you think God works? He works through practicality.
Well, one of the reasons that the Protestant Reformation was so successful is a result of the Black Death. Many of the most learned people in the church were priests because, this is before the printing press, right? So if you wanted to learn, access to books was restricted by...
Well, could I reframe what you just said? Part of the reason the Protestants were so successful is because the Catholic Church did not gently let go of that tyranny. They tried to hold on to it when they were no longer given the mandate of heaven.
Okay, I don't necessarily disagree with that, but I was speaking more in practical terms. Is what happened was because of the Black Death and because of the ritual of last rites, the priests all became infected, and there was the priestly class was nearly wiped out. So for a long time, there was a dysgenic effect in Europe because the best and the brightest were always recruited into the priesthood. The most learned men, the ones that could learn Latin and Greek.
Yeah, and they didn't reproduce because of the prohibition on
Correct.
marriage.
Well,
right?
they reproduced it a lot. I mean, let's be honest. Some of them were still.
Yeah.
Let me outright say it's time for the Catholic Church to get rid of that.
All right. Well, let me just finish the thought. But yeah, Hadrian, you're absolutely right. So they didn't reproduce in the number. So it actually had a dysgenic effect on Europeans because you were. I remember my mother used to tell me the story like when she was a kid in Ireland, back in the 50s, how they used to take the smartest kids in class and actually bring them to the seminary in Dublin, where she lived. She lived in Meath, and they used to take the smartest kids and just recruit them into the church, and the families would be so happy about it, But basically,
the church went from being eugenic to being dysgenic.
I was gonna say you got to wonder if there's a motive behind that somewhere, some strings being pulled. I don't know. Maybe
the motive.
We can go there because of YouTube's restrictions. We won't go there publicly. It's my suggestion.
Exactly. But I'm just putting that possibility out there for people to just ruminate over.
Well, and this is what I'm trying to say is that tyranny was justified for quite some time, but when it's time to end the tyranny, again, the Roman tyrant was given tyranny during the emergency, and during an emergency, it's entirely correct that you have a tyrant. But when it's time to end it, it's time to end it. And you know what? Look at the Fourth Crusade. Okay, look at there are so many crimes by the Catholic Church because the Catholic Church does not let go of the tyranny. And if the Catholic Church wants to be true, it needs to let go of the tyranny. Unfortunately, they're doing it completely back-asswards right now, where they're saying divorce is fine and homosexuality is fine, but we still control everything. That's the exact opposite of what the Catholic Church needs to be doing. By the way, $5 super chat from BRL Journey. The farther removed a Protestant sect is from the Puritans, the better. That's why the Lutherans and Anglicans still have a modicum of sense. Exactly. I think the big problem with Protestantism is the Puritans. Okay, they're the most literalist, the most logical, all brain, no chest. Yeah, I would agree with that. Lutherans and Anglicans, I can talk with them quite a bit. It's the Puritans and to a lesser degree the Baptists are way too damn literal. It's like you put third function people in charge of the church.
Yeah, but actually, first off, can I finish what I was going to say about the?
Yes.
the plague. Sorry, I just wanted to get it out there. So anyway, so what happened was, so that there was, and this what I was going to say, it actually comes to explain the spawning of the Jesuits, because people are wondering, why did the Jesuits come about?
Because the Jews were very successful. So
well, Davis, please. What I was going to say. So there was a huge brain drain in the Catholic Church because you had all their best and brightest die. Then they were forced to recruit, to the second tier people. So, and that kind of fell into favor. Then they weren't necessarily getting the best and brightest anymore because, mediocrity breeds mediocrity. And then when you had people like Martin Luther, when he went on his drunken rant, they didn't really have great scholars to debate him on the merits. Now, personally, I'm not a Christian, and I find the whole mythos flawed. But that's just me. I'm not, But so the Jesuits were actually a response to that. That's where you had the Counter-Reformation, where the Jesuits were the best and the brightest. And to this day, they talk about Jesuit schools. They're the most learned of the Catholic orders are the Jesuits. These are the people that totally know the Bible. They know, as you would say, the catechism of the church, backwards and forwards. They know all the arguments. They can quote Aquinas and Augustine, right off the top of their head. And that's where they came about. And you wouldn't have had the Jesuits if the church didn't see a necessity for that to combat the Protestant Reformation. A lot of people might not know that.
Thanks for sharing that.
Oh, and I'd just like to point out that most of the evil in the Catholic Church comes from the Jesuit order. When the Protestants rebelled, the first thing they did was adopt usury. About 200 years later, they adopted sodomy. But the first thing they did was adopt usury, and the Jesuit schools mainly came about to rationalize usury. Because the issue with usury is it is such an incredibly complex topic. Nobody with an IQ below 120 can understand it, and nobody with an IQ below 140 even wants to read about it. So it's an incredibly powerful, it's a form of black magic. But financial systems are so freaking complex that trying to say what is usury and what isn't usury, your average person can't understand. Okay, I barely understand it myself. And the Jesuits basically arose. They became powerful because usury is a very powerful form of black magic. And they managed to rationalize usury. And usury it's a form of black magic that you need a very high IQ to use, and very few people can even understand what it is. So I don't want to.
I heard rumors there's a certain tribe that's kind of got it down, but those are just rumors.
You notice that they were the only people on the planet specifically told not to do it.
Hey, Steele, don't drink the juice.
Sorry.
Again, this is part of the reason I'm a Christian, is because it comes out of the one people on the planet that God said, you see this form of black magic that only really smart motherfuckers can use? Don't fucking use it. And what did they go on to do? Now, that said, that's a topic. We could talk for hours about usury.
Yeah.
That's like a separate show.
That's a separate show.
Guy, lending money at interest is not usury. Usury is something. It's exploiting financial tools to enslave somebody else. That's the short definition.
Yeah.
Yes. That's very apt. By the way, you're gonna read Viral Journeys.
Yes. Hey, Thrun, could you please explain what third function means?
Sure, and I also dropped a link in the chat for those who want to just take a look at an overview. The trifunctional hypothesis was put forth by a man named Georges Dumézil, but you will also find this in the Indo-European or the Vedic text, and also in the Norse Rígstula. Essentially, what it was a trifunctional structure for society with an economic class that formed the base. This would have constituted most of the population. These would have been your typical Joes and Janes who would have gotten married, had children, had regular jobs, basically maintained the economic systems of a society. And then you had a second function, which was martial. This would be your warrior aristocracy, your noble lords, thanes, professional knights, essentially. And then at the very top, you would have a first function, which was considered sacral, and it was bifurcated into two aspects of the first function. One being judges; these were essentially your kings, and then there was a otherworldly aspect of that, who would have been magicians, like Merlins and so forth. And yeah, if you go to that link, it explains it in pretty fair depth. Across a couple of different Indo-European cultures. And if you really want to get into it, you can read, it's called Mitra Varuna is the name of the book that Georges Dumézil wrote, that goes into great depth about this. But that's it in a nutshell.
Viral Journey, I hope that satisfied your question.
If you have a follow-up, just let us know.
A huge part of it is your ability to intellectually understand things. And it's not directly related to IQ. I'm sure there's IQ correlates.
It has more to do with what a person's talents are suited to. Like most people are suited to the economic class. They're suited to having a job and having a family and being a part of that sort of worldly life. The noble aristocracy were more suited to sort of the life of a professional knight or samurai. They had a code. They generally did not marry. They were sworn to the quest. An example of that would be Arthur's knights, and in particular Lancelot. He pretty much epitomizes the second function man. And
the second function very much can marry, but your average person out there, the center of their life is going to be the house and the home and the family. Whereas the second function person, and by the way, scientists, I think, they are often very second function, that they might be married, but it's not the primary purpose.
Well, a good way to explain that or frame that, I think, would be the military husband, right? Like a man who has sworn an oath to the military, and particularly if he's very serious about it. Yeah, he may have a wife and children, but he puts his oath to serve as a soldier first, so that the family may take a back seat to his role as a soldier. So
have you seen HBO Rome?
I have.
Hey, Thrun?
No, I have not.
Oh, I think you would really enjoy it.
Okay.
And it follows a couple of soldiers in Caesar's army.
Well, can I describe it?
Oh, please do.
All right. So HBO Rome describes basically the friendship between two soldiers, and it takes place during the backdrop of. It starts with Caesar's defeat of Vercingetorix in Gaul, and it's I guess takes place over roughly a 20-year period, and it's the friendship that starts by two soldiers who initially hate each other, but they're both members of Caesar's 13th Legion. I don't know if Hadrian's.
By the way, these two soldiers were mentioned briefly in Caesar's Gaulish memoirs. That's where they got the name for these two soldiers. It was these guys that just hated each other, and Caesar had to deal with them.
This sounds like something that I would be interested in. So
yeah, it's very, very powerful. I mean, it is somewhat flawed because they didn't know there was going to be a second season. Mm-hmm. So the first, that happens sometimes.
Okay, I'll have to check it out.
But it's quite fascinating, and because it's during that backdrop of that turbulent time in Rome, the triumvirate, and Pompey, and these guys are dealing with all their personal lives at the same time. Where all these other macro issues were going on that we all know about from history books. So it is very fascinating, and how these basically pawns in this giant chess game actually impacted things that you would never imagine, which is quite fascinating, especially when the one guy fucks Cleopatra.
Oh, Antony. I mean, I am familiar with the story.
No, not Mark Antony.
It wasn't Mark Antony.
It was somebody else. Okay.
Yeah, so that was.
What was it? Was it? Julius Caesar? Obviously, he had an affair with her as well.
Right. No, it was one of the soldiers, and before she met Mark Antony.
Okay.
she had Caesar was older when she met anyway, and Caesar had an affliction he had. They think it was what's epilepsy.
Yeah,
they believe it was. We don't know, but it sounds that way. That's what he had, so we're gonna assume that's what it is. So, some sort of thing that caused seizures, probably epilepsy. And anyway, but the someone else was actually the sired that child in his stead. But anyway, I wanted to go back to the Arthurian legend of Lancelot.
HBO Rome, these guys, they're the odd couple, okay? They're Bert and Ernie. One of them is very straight-laced and conservative and has a traditional family where he's like an overbearing patriarch, and the other guy is a drunken lout that tries to get away with whatever he can get away with. And,
but they're both super alpha. Neither one of these guys you would fuck with. I mean, these guys are as alpha as you can imagine.
Now, in actual history, they were only mentioned once in Caesar's Gaulish adventures because they hated each other. The series develops these two characters and they earn respect for one another, but they still hate each other. Even though they're really good friends by the end, they still...
Well, they become brothers. I mean, they refer to each other as brother.
And so the Bert of the two is the one that fucks Cleopatra, and it's implied that it wasn't Mark Antony that, like, in the series canon.
No, it's implied that wasn't Caesar. They knew it wasn't Antony's because the child was born before she ever met Antony.
Right. And it's implied that Bert was the one that got her pregnant. Nuts.
Okay.
And anyway, it's a really good series. If you're, anyway, I enjoyed it. It was on several years ago.
It sounds like something I would enjoy. So yeah, I may have to check it out.
It's not 100% historically accurate, but it's historically genuine. That is what Romans thought like. That is how they behaved.
Well, I mean, none of these series are 100% accurate. I mean, Vikings isn't either, but I enjoy it because of the spirit of the story.
Also, we can't do 100% accuracy because even like, when Caesar's adventures in Gaul, I forget what this, I remember reading it years ago, and he writes about himself in the third person. I don't know if you ever read about him. I mean,
there's a great series by Hardcore History where he says, on the one hand, Caesar is writing propaganda. On the other hand, what better source than propaganda written by the man himself?
Yeah. So, but at the same time, you have to understand that Caesar, if nothing else, was a political animal.
By the way, do you know why he was killed?
What do you mean? Do I know why he was killed?
Caesar was trying to undermine the usurers.
Oh yeah.
Destroyed Rome.
Yeah.
And Caesar was assassinated for the same reason JFK was assassinated. He was trying to undermine usury.
Well,
it was a little bit more complicated than that, though, because what Caesar had done was, well, you're all familiar with the expression "crossing the Rubicon." That is a reference to Julius Caesar.
Mm-hmm.
Do people not know that?
I think everyone knows that.
Well, the Rubicon is a river in Italy, and traditionally,
the Roman army, the general was always supposed to disband the army before crossing the Rubicon.
Correct.
The real political thing going on in Rome at the time was usury, and Caesar, like, they were fine with dictators after Caesar, right? They claimed he was sic semper tyrannis. He wasn't a tyrant. He was trying to destroy the bankers. That's who sicked the mob on him. I can't wait to meet Caesar in heaven. By the way, VRL Journey sends US $5 and says, HBO X, historical drama with a bunch of tits. 10 out of 10.
Yeah, there's some tits in there. I don't know if it's gratuitously.
There's some naked penises too.
Yeah, really appreciate the super chats from Viral Journey and all the others tonight.
Yeah. Put away the credit card, though, buddy. We
need some new people to come up here.
We need some new people. And don't get us wrong. I mean, well, I don't get any of this, but we might give you a thimble full of whiskey.
Yeah,
thank you for the thimble, but I don't get any of this. I'm one of these schmucks. I had to pay $100 to get him to shut someone up.
He's got to drink Manischewitz.
Yeah, I got to drink the Manischewitz.
Hey guys, on the one hand, I'm using all the money you send me. I'm using this to put myself into a better place so I can be a better leader to you. At the same time, I don't plan to rely upon you my entire life. Okay? Listen, Markiplier. I fucking love Markiplier. Okay, I don't care what anybody says. I love Markiplier. At the end of the day, though, he needs his audience to give him money. That's we're doing the opposite around here. We need the seed capital so we can build something to make you guys more money. And $2 from Woachman at that statement. Thank you very much, brother.
Bullfurkers in the chat.
He says, "Don't worry, I'm good." Yeah, okay, brother. I hear you. That's cool. No, if you want to give chat, if you want to give super chats, that's totally cool. I don't want people to go.
Let's get some new guys in the super chats there.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, no, Vero Journal, we love you, brother. I just, want other people to,
break love.
Yeah, other people can, throw out $2 and say something, contribute if they think that this content is valuable. But I was trying to get to this Lancelot thing, and I keep being sidetracked. So can I talk on that?
Please do. And by the way, Bullbucker, if you want to jump in, you've got the link in your Skype. Okay. But please don't feel obligated. I ate up a bunch of your time last night.
Just an FYI, we are coming up on the 3rd hour, so I don't know how late you want to run. Just let you know.
I know. I wanted to end it an hour ago, but we're
okay. All right, but let's give Steele an opportunity to make his point.
Okay, Lancelot in the Arthurian legend, Lancelot is the ultimate epitome of the knight. Hadrian was talking about how, you're a soldier, you can have a family, but you're first and foremost, you're devoted to the quest, and that's what Lancelot was. And Lancelot, if you notice, he did not have a family. Not only did he not have a family, he was separate from the other knights. He was the envy of all the other knights. He was the epitome of how do we?
Well, in Excalibur, Arthur said, "You are what is best in men." That's how he phrased it.
Yes, you were the embodiment of what is all that is best in men, and being involved. It's kind of like how not everybody is called to marry and have children, and like that's what happened. If according to legend, Lancelot's downfall, his quote unquote fall from grace, was when he slept with Guinevere, and that's when he lost his way.
This reminds me why we brought up the second function. Or why we brought up HBO Rome, is because both the main characters are different versions of the second function. So the one character has a wife in Rome who's been waiting 5 freaking years while he was in Gaul. And she accepts his authority. Like she's a second function woman. It takes a hell of a lot to be a military wife. She's not one of these military wives that goes and fucks the first guy at the bar as soon as her husband goes overseas. That's third function.
Actually, she did.
Well, eventually, but not.
Hey, don't ruin it for me, guys.
Okay, sorry.
Whereas the other guy, the Bert. Sorry, I'm getting them confused. Ernie. Okay, Bert's the serious one with the wife. Ernie is the other sort of second function where he's constantly banging hoes, but he never gets married. He's more of the John Steele of the group.
Well, see, that's the thing. A knight within this concept of the second function would be free to have relations with women. He just couldn't have an attachment that conflicted in any way or competed in any way with his marriage to his oath. His marriage to the quest, because that's what he's married to. I think you might recall that I brought this up on another podcast, or I might have brought it up on yours, I don't recall, that marriage and offspring exist for all 3 functions. They just express themselves differently. And in the case of the second function, the marriage is between the hero and the quest, and the offspring of that are the heroic deeds. And we see that exemplified in the Grail quest of the Arthurian romance, which is actually fulfilled not by Lancelot, because Lancelot falls from grace. It is fulfilled by his bastard son, by the Lady Elaine. That's Galahad. Galahad comes in as this almost Christ-like figure that fulfills the Grail quest, and as soon as he does so, he dies. His life is accomplished.
Old and Tired leaves a comment saying Spartans couldn't marry until 30. And it used to be the policy that in the Canadian military, if you were under the age of 25, you needed a sergeant's permission to get married.
Makes sense. And, when we start getting into first function people in Rome, a Vestal Virgin, she was released from her obligation typically in her late 30s or early 40s. She could marry at that time, but she spent her childbearing years devoted to her goddess.
Think of the like if you have a good drama about British royal families, the husband and wife, the king and queen, are going to recognize the innate strategic nature of their marriage. It's like, yes, they get to, on the one hand, they've got a little bit more permissiveness than the third function would have. Like the third function, you get married, you stay fucking married. All right. But the first function, there's a bit more permissiveness. Yeah, you can have a mistress, but only if it doesn't embarrass your wife. And it's not about your wife's emotions. She's above that. It's about not making a fool out of her and disrupting the kingdom.
Right. Well, with greater responsibility comes greater rights. That's how it goes.
The second function can get married, and they often do. Okay, like most people wind up pairing up at some point. But the second function, they get married, but they recognize there's going to be massive sacrifices in the marriage. That they're getting married The third function gets married because they're in love. Second function, they get married to produce the best damn children they can and to support the offspring, right? And they both sacrifice like hell for it. The first function, you don't get to be happy. You might occasionally be happy, but your responsibility is to the kingdom and to the people.
Well, that's a perfect example of that in the film Excalibur. You've all seen it, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Where Guinevere is accused, and she hasn't violated. She hasn't committed adultery against her king, but she's
the accusation, is damning enough.
And the king Arthur cannot be her champion.
The wife of Caesar must be beyond reproach.
Right.
I don't care if you're getting some on the side of the stable boy. You can't get caught, though.
Right, but what I was going to say is Arthur, he says he couldn't be her. She goes, "You won't champion me," and he goes, "No, I cannot. I am king, and I must stand in judge of this." As much as he wanted to defend her.
Right.
He had this higher.
And she said, he said, "I must be king first." And she said, "Before a husband," and he said, "If need be."
Correct. A first function woman and a second function man acted like they were third function.
Well, she did. He never did.
Guinevere is a third function figure. In fact, I mean, I can take this into an even deeper esoteric path because I've studied this stuff. Guinevere is in the story for the purposes of tempting the men. She first tempts Arthur, and she successfully tempts him away from his marriage to the land. When he is given the sword Excalibur, he is entering into a sacred marriage between the Lady of the Lake and the High King. This is an ancient ritual. And as soon as he becomes king, he sets his sights on Guinevere. She's a temptation, and Merlin tries to guide him away from this. He's like, no, you have a land to quell. He's the one trying to tell him, look, you've entered into this sacred troth with Avalon. You can't be doing this. And he defies Merlin, and he pursues Guinevere anyway. And I would hold that
he doesn't defy. No, correct. He doesn't defy Merlin. He defies, because Merlin is subordinate to the king. He defies
he's not.
Natural law.
Absolutely not. Merlin is not subordinate to the king. Merlin is outside of the tribe entirely. He is a magician. He is a first function magician, and he is outside of the tribal law. He's not subject to.
No, but he is under. Well, we might have to agree to disagree on this, but.
I'm very well studied on this.
Okay. Well.
This is the tradition I followed. I'm going to side with Adrian that Merlin was a white-robed druid.
Right, but he still understood that because it was Arthur that was married to the land, and because Arthur had this role that Merlin was ultimately subject to. So by proxy,
Merlin is
Arthur was
Merlin's outside of time. Arthur. He's like he is not subject to the laws of men.
No, well,
he acts upon the fate of men.
Merlin's purpose is ultimately selfless. Correct?
It is, but he is a functionary of the gods. He and Morgana both are functionaries of the gods. Morgana is the aspect of the divine feminine that tests men. And Guinevere is the aspect of the divine feminine that tempts men, and they both perform their roles exemplarily in the Arthurian romance.
Right, but
And
that
yeah,
doesn't necessarily address my argument.
Well, okay.
I'm saying, let me be clear about what I'm trying to say is,
Okay.
yes, Merlin was a subject to the king. The king could command Merlin.
No, he can't.
Yes,
was the
he
one that
did.
raised
Wait a minute. Okay, we're talking about Excalibur, right? Okay.
Yes.
I'm going to quote you a line from Excalibur from the very beginning. Okay. When Uther is calling for Merlin, and he's like, Merlin, you give no heed when I call you. And Merlin addresses him, and he says, I have walked. How does he phrase it? I have walked the land since the beginning of time. Sometimes I give, sometimes I take. It is mine to know which and when. He instructs the king, no, you do not summon me. I do as I will.
The court magician is not the court jester.
Yeah, well, no, there is not the court jester, but there is still a king. That is an absolute. Now, the king has to play by certain rules. The magician can kind of step outside of it. So it's not by subjugating or being subject to. I don't necessarily mean that. I'd say Merlin's role in the Arthurian legend is not simply he's a puppet of the king. He's
not a puppet.
I'm not. Let me finish, Adrian. Relax.
Okay.
Relax. Don't get your panties in a bunch.
Well, if John Steele wanted smoke blown up his ass, he'd go home with a cigar and a short length of thing.
Adrian, you were in the company of men.
I know. Hey, we might have to get Bullverker on here because he's even more learned on this than I am.
Okay, you're in the company of men, and as a man, what happened is Merlin was a man. Yes, he was.
No, he's not.
Well, he was a god, but and that there's some ambiguity about that. But the point is,
Uther even says it in the movie. He says, "You're not a man. You don't understand." He says.
Well, he was a man. By that, he meant you don't have earthly desires.
You don't know what he meant by that. You're
no. Uther said that in that context when he was desiring the earl's wife.
I know, but you're projecting an assumption onto what Uther meant by that.
Well, it was because it's contextual, because they were speaking about his desire. Because Merlin granted Uther's wish. Uther commanded Merlin to enable him to sleep.
He did not command. They negotiated. He said, if I give you this, then you give me what I want. They negotiated a deal. He absolutely did not command.
Well, he didn't want to do it.
Dude, I'm sorry, but you're projecting things onto the film that are not there.
Well, I could say the same about you.
No, you can't, because I'm quoting.
Yes, I can. I just did.
No, you didn't.
I'm noticing a disagreement over what magician means, and I'm going to go back to the tarot imagery. There's two forms of the magician. There's the magician in the tarot deck. It's a young man holding up the whatever it is. This is the role I've played many a time. Okay, the magician in the tarot deck is 25 years old. He has become the master of transmutation. But there's also in the tarot deck part of the major arcana. Which one is it? The old man, Hathrun?
The hanged man, or the hermit? The hermit.
The hermit.
Yeah.
Yes, the hermit. That's what Merlin is. Merlin is not the magician. The magician is a young man. Actually, in many ways, Arthur is the magician. Okay, the hermit. That's what Merlin is. Merlin is a senior druid. He is the man that raised Arthur, and Arthur was called to unite the Christian and pagan elements in his land, but instead of uniting them, he cucked. He cucked for a woman, he cucked for the church, and he betrayed the pagan elements, he betrayed the land itself. Thus, this right here is a microcosm of the war within Europe that we've had for the past 1,000 years. Part of it's the Protestant versus Catholic war, part of it is the pagan versus Christian war. He cucked. He was weak. He was supposed to be first function, and he acted like he was third function.
Well, he faltered, but he ultimately redeemed himself.
Maybe himself, but not us.
Arthur? How did Arthur redeem himself?
He He was supposed to be our savior. He was supposed
How did Arthur redeem himself? Hello?
I don't know who you're addressing that question to.
I'm addressing it to you because you made the claim that he redeemed himself.
Oh yeah, no, he redeemed himself ultimately at the end by fighting against Morgana and what the hell is his name?
Mordred, his son?
Yes.
No, that didn't redeem him. What redeemed him was Percival's sacrifice in bringing the Grail back to Camelot and healing him of his spiritual wound.
Morgana,
right, but the purpose of his the purpose of that of bringing the Grail back to him, the whole idea of the Grail quest is you get
the
very
divine feminine.
Get very Joseph Campbell-esque into that. The idea of the Grail, that was him understanding that. There's a great line in that movie where he goes, "I did not know how empty my soul was until it was filled."
Right.
And that's when he realized what must be done. And there's a great line, knights, guards, squires, prepare for battle.
Okay, but my point is it's Percival who actually, in that version, wins the Grail and heals Arthur. He's the one who redeems Arthur. Arthur then goes on to fulfill his function, which he was originally supposed to fulfill, and then fell from grace and fell into this lowly state that he was in that necessitated the Grail quest in the first place. But it's Percival who's the one who actually undertakes the quest in that movie and redeems Arthur.
Well, they all took the quest. The quest knights, they all went out. Percival was the only one that succeeded.
Right. He serves in the function of Galahad in that particular version.
Right. So Percival succeeded, finds the Holy Grail. And through that, I think we're kind of I don't know if it's a language thing going on here, but I think we're kind of agreeing on the basic points of things. I think we're just interpreting it different ways. And this is one of the challenges with mythology.
No, we're agreeing on certain points, but I absolutely, well, not just but I think your interpretation is wrong. I think you're misinformed about what Merlin is and what a magician is and what a first function sacral person is.
Well, I think Arthur failed us.
He did fail. He absolutely failed.
He was supposed to unite Christianity and heathendom, and instead he picked one over the other. He cucked for pussy.
Mm-hmm. And so did Lancelot. The best men fell.
By the way, Hathrune's first test of me is whether or not I would cuck for pussy.
A Viral Journey sends $5. He says, wrong. Merlin is a gay Holocaust survivor. Harry Potter told me so. Checkmate.
By the way, we got a couple of other super chats. I've been sitting on these for a while. But by the way, I've never seen Excalibur. I guess I'm going to have to watch it now.
Yes.
Yeah, how could you not have seen? Oh, never mind.
Well, because most of these movies are fucking terrible. And anyway, so I need to hear about a movie 10 times before I actually.
By the way, it was filmed in Ireland. By the way.
So Matt Lawrence sends $5 and says the celibacy of priests in the Catholic Church likely came from the Buddhist monastic tradition circa 500 BC. I'm going to disagree. I think celibacy has been recognized by many peoples. It's been recognized everywhere in the world that when you are celibate, when you stop chasing pussy all the time, it does grant you great power. So it didn't. The Buddhists and the Catholics discovered it independently. Now, my issue with celibacy is that you can't hold third function people to first function standards.
No, and you can't hold a first function person to a third function standard either.
The first and second functions are the ones that need to realize they might have to give up pussy. If they're going to engage in producing children, they can only do so under very specific circumstances. Third function gets to have it. Third function gets to have family and frith and all of that.
They're like the hobbits. They get to enjoy the simple pleasures of life.
Yeah. First and second they are like Samwise. Samwise gets the happy ending.
Yeah.
First and second function don't. like they get to enjoy things that the third function doesn't, but they also don't get the guaranteed happiness. They have to be willing to sacrifice it all.
No one gets a guaranteed happiness.
And Septeus7, US $2, asks what I think about Eastern Orthodoxy. Now, I have an incredible respect for Eastern Orthodoxy, and I think there's some major crimes that the Catholic Church has done against the Eastern Orthodox, specifically the Fourth Crusade. That said, Eastern Orthodoxy strikes me, and yeah, I'm channeling John C. Wright here, it strikes me as a regional religion. The same way like Roman Catholicism is for Romans, and Irish Catholicism is for the Irish, and Mexican Catholicism is for the Mexicans.
Well, what's wrong with that?
The Roman Catholic Church embraces all the flavors of Christianity. The Eastern Orthodox is a very specific flavor, and if you are Russian or Mongolian, it is the correct flavor for you. It is not the correct flavor for me.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I would say that it's one of the challenges of many that I have with the Catholic Church is this collectivization, this universal. You know what I'm trying to say.
One of the things that really convinced me about the Catholic Church is it's not universalist, is that it acknowledges the differences between divergent people. And there's different flavors of it for every flavor of people out there.
Okay, I would disagree with that. I was raised in the church, and I disagree with that strongly.
Irish Catholic or Roman Catholic?
Well, we didn't have there was no Irish Catholic Church.
I've got two Catholic churches within driving distance. One of them is the Maronite Church, which is for the Lebanese people, and I love going there. It's wonderful hearing the gospel in Arabic. Arabic is it's such a beautiful language. It is such a religious language. And I've got the Roman Catholic Church, which they have English and guitars. It's all very ugly. I don't like it one bit. But like I said, the priest is a saint. I've got two different flavors of Catholicism within driving distance.
Well, I'm not talking about flavors. I'm talking. Well, I guess that's the point. Is like, you know, when you mix all the flavors together, you get no flavors. You know, I mean,
and they don't mix the flavors. They keep them separate. There's even two different Catholic churches within driving distance, and they're completely different.
Okay.
One truth, one God, many iterations of that.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
This is from watching Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
That's the true Arthurian myth. There you go, guys. That's it. Bring out your dead. And
I didn't actually like that movie.
'Tis but a scratch.
Yes, but a flesh wound.
I love Monty Python, but I've never liked that movie.
I liked Life of Brian because I was with my parents and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's tits and a dick in this movie.
You see the meaning of life?
I love a bit in Life of Brian where the Roman soldier starts correcting the Jewish graffitiist on his Latin pronunciation. Anybody that's studied Latin, like that joke doesn't translate well these days because nobody speaks Latin, but I actually did study Latin, and so that joke is fucking hilarious.
But my question is there a reason why they made fun of Sir Robin in the way they did?
Oh, I don't recall there even being a Sir Robin in the Arthurian myths. I think they made that up. Yeah.
I think they just made up Sir Robin to make fun of Sir Robin.
Right.
Bravely run away.
He had his nostrils raped. Remember that in the song?
Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of Monty Python, to be honest. I kind of find it.
What's wrong with you? Get off this panel.
Dead parrots don't talk is fucking hilarious.
I don't know. I just found it like I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of it. I found it a little bit degenerate. It just wasn't my thing.
I'm with Steele. I find the ending to Holy Grail very disappointing in a narrative sense. The Meaning of Life was very nihilistic. I don't actually like them all that. I like their skit show. I don't like their movies.
Yeah, I think they're like way overrated, and I don't really care for them that much. I mean, I remember when I was younger, like they were like kind of a big thing among people, and I was like, I kind of pretended like, yeah, they're fine. I was like, no, I mean, if that shit's on TV, I don't even watch TV, but I would flick the channel to something else.
Yeah, John Steele's just going to be sharpening his swords and polishing his guns.
What the fuck is wrong with that?
Exactly. I'm going to be doing the same thing.
But you had the French. I love the French guy that was like making fun of him and throwing cows and livestock over the castle wall. That's so funny. And,
yeah,
Sir Lancelot goes inside of I'm sorry, I just remember the part where Sir Lancelot goes inside of the
yeah, the nunnery, and all the nuns are trying to fuck him, and
then the spankings.
Yeah, I just found it degenerate.
Yeah, I agree. Like, there's funny jokes. I feel the same way about South Park, where it's like, yeah, I get it. I'm not anti South Park. I just think it's degenerate and not funny.
Yeah, like I remember, like I hated South Park when it first came out. I remember, like, and this was a long time ago. I think it was the first season where they actually had a character that was a lump of shit.
Oh, that's so gross.
And there was actually a character in South Park that was a piece of shit.
Yeah, I know.
Mr. Hanky.
And I remember like people watching and laughing about it. And I was like, this is like something that like a 10-year-old would find funny. It's like I don't get it. I mean, you're talking about a piece of shit, and
there was a joke in Family Guy that perfectly summed up the two different audiences that watch the show and why I don't watch it. So it's this episode where Peter decides he's going to put on a play, and then he goes out on stage and he forgets all of his lines and he just passes wind, right? So he's standing on stage and he passes wind, which in my mind is completely unfunny. But then the audience, which is all these hoity-toity people, they see him pass wind and they burst out laughing. Now, I watched that episode with the retard. The retard started laughing when Peter passed wind because farting is funny. I started laughing when the audience of hoity-toity people laughed at him passing wind because it's this social commentary that even hoity-toity people think fart jokes are funny as well, and that was funny to me. And so there's the two levels of comedy there. I don't think fart jokes are funny, but I think meta jokes about fart jokes are funny. And that's when I realized, oh, this is why Family Guy is so popular. Because the retards laugh at the fart joke, and then the smart people laugh at the joke about the fart joke. I want nothing to do with this.
Right, that was my problem growing up, is I would always laugh at a different part of the movie than everyone else. The few times that I actually would be hanging out with people, I laughed at the meta joke, and yeah, it doesn't help.
Let's put this in live.
That's a good point that he's saying there about the meta joke. Like, yeah, the meta joke is funny, and that's like television shows like South Park. I think like the meta joke I might find funny, but like most people are laughing at the base joke, which I just find repulsive and gross.
Let's put this in live stream terms. This live stream is very meta, right? Like we occasionally dive down into the literal. For instance, you were having that argument about the nature of that of Excalibur. That's the literal. But 90% of this live stream is the meta. And most people don't like meta humor. This is never going to be a popular live stream. Okay? Most people want the This Week in Stupid. And I like This Week in Stupid as well. Right? Like that appeals to me as much as it appeals to everybody else. But this live stream is extremely meta. It's about This Week in Stupid rather than being This Week in Stupid. So if you want to be popular, if you want to be popular, do the basic joke and the meta joke at the same time. I don't really watch that much South Park but I have a lot of respect for those shows because they've got the stupid joke and the meta joke at the same time.
Now, there's this tiny YouTube channel that's like the meta of the meta. He's called Hell by the Dashboard Light. I think John Steele will like him. He kind of sounds like John Steele, but he's always talking about you, Aurini. He talks about Aaron Clary and Roosh.
Oh, geez, I got to subscribe to this guy then. I got to give him some love.
He needs some love.
Link to his channel into the chat.
Yeah, I'll do that right now.
Oh, maybe invite the guy on. If he's paying attention, he might have some good criticisms.
Well, he's one of these
how late are
guys
we
who
gonna
was
run tonight?
he was a PhD in biology, some sort of biology, and he lives in New York, and he talks about how he worked very hard in school, and he wishes that he just partied and stuff. Like, he regrets his hard work, which I can relate to. I put a lot of work into college and high school for nothing.
Oh,
And a lot of
7 years of
I
work.
think we all did. I put a lot of hard work into a past career that I wouldn't say that I regret it per se, but had I had better knowledge at the time, I would have made different choices.
I put 7 years into the Canadian military, and that has not netted me I haven't even got the tuition reimbursement I was supposed to get.
Yeah.
I guess I'm fortunate. The one thing, like, I can say, financially speaking, I have no regrets about the energies I put in my past career.
You have zero regrets about buying property in Seattle back when it was cheap?
Well, no, that wasn't really a career thing, but I don't regret that either, brother.
Regrets drug dealing and not getting caught. No regrets.
B-Rail Journey sends US $5 and says, Family Guy season 1 to 3 are worth a rewatch. I need an Echo song was gold. I don't know if we're allowed to say that word here, brother.
Oh yeah, chill with that now. They're getting really fucking ban happy.
Yeah.
I meant to mention this at the start of the stream. Millennial Woes got kicked off of Twitter.
Yeah, I know.
And all he did was state an objective fact in a completely non-hateful way.
No, brother, that's why I'm saying chill. And Hadrian, you remember we talked offline that time?
Oh yeah, yeah.
You got to be real careful, man. Brother, I don't want your channel to disappear, man. We got to be...
Exactly. I'm not... Listen, 2015 was the year of provoking the left and making them agitate, making them vibrate by saying something you weren't supposed to say. That's not the current year. So this ain't the word of... This ain't the channel where we flip, we bite our tongue at feminists.
Yeah, just don't give them an excuse,
Yeah, but listen, all love and support going to Millennial Woes for that. So I fired him a message the other day on Skype saying, like, dude, I'm sorry this happened. Don't really have anything to offer him right now. This actually goes back to my original point. Maybe he and I have had, I don't think we have an argument right now. I don't think we're beefing. He replied and said, thanks, I appreciate it.
I spoke to him once privately. My opinion, he's a good guy. I know there's a couple of friends I have that don't get along with him, but I've had nothing but good interactions with him personally.
Yeah, and like what I know, he and I, whatever. There's been, if you're friends with somebody long enough, you get into a disagreement over something. It's not fatal. It's not mortal. It's all love and support for Millennial Woes. Millennial Woes did nothing wrong. Guys, listen, we should really tie this thing close because we've been going it's been an amazing chat.
About $1 a minute. How about we put on overtime where it's $1 a minute, give shekels if you want more Aurini.
It's like I have a Judolini with me or something.
Yeah, but not Viral Journey. As much as Davis loves your money, it's got to be someone else besides Viral Journey.
Yeah, Viral Journey, stop sending money. I love your money, but dude, you got to pay your bills too.
We do love you, brother, but...
Hey, by the way, he apologized for Viral Journey. I'm joking. I'm not offended. It was a great super chat. I really hope we're going to see about this. I want to get Frame Game on here. That will really prove my Judolini. That I love Frame Game.
What the fuck? I thought someone was getting swatted.
So let's close this thing up. If there's any questions we got from the chat, please toss them out. I think it's been a damn good live stream. And you know what? One of the things I like about these live streams is that they are not as condensed as my regular videos. So it's a lot harder for the enemies to go and, oh, good Lord. I did a video way back when talking about how blacks get exploited by Hollywood. And I got absolutely lambasted for being a racist for making that video. I shouldn't have made the video. It was unstrategic. I was being charitable. Don't be charitable, guys. It's usually a death sentence. But yeah, I like these live streams because they're too fucking long. And I take them down after a couple of weeks. So they're a lot harder to mine for quotes about how evil I am.
Yeah, quote mining, that's the danger.
They
But I
can't
just want
watch
to
it
I
for
want to
too
shout
long.
out to everybody in the chat that is listening to this. I think you guys are great for listening and or supporting Davis's work, and those of you who are still here, I think there's 66 still watching. Oh, hey, we got another super chat from Ian McDonald. Smash that like button though. Ian McDonald says, "I want to talk to you privately, Davis. Friday good?"
Yes, it is. Around 3 p.m. ish Mountain Time, I should be free. Give me a shout. And by the way, I'm still doing the life coaching. I had a recent request for life coaching that I need to respond to. Life coaching costs money. And by the way, guys, I don't want to keep you, I don't want to life coach you for 12 fucking years. I want to life coach you until you unfuck yourselves. But yeah, Ian McDonald, absolutely. Fire me a message on Friday. We will chat.
Okay, so finish it up. Smash, like, comment, and subscribe, Davis. Take us out.
Tubercat asked, why the hell are you so damn humble tonight, Steele?
Well, was I being humble? I don't know. Hadrian would disagree.
Hilarious how they preach to us about racism. Has anyone read the statements they make in the Knesset about the... Oh, you could. We can't. That's hate speech, dude. That's hate speech. Our number one ally. Okay? Don't... I'm going to reiterate what I said at the beginning. Guys, go check out Frame Game. Now, if you are in any way organizing anything, check out Frame Game. All right? That cat lays it down very flat. He tells you what's going on. And I absolutely love Jews like him. I love that he's proud of himself and proud of his heritage and all of that.
Yeah, we love, just so everybody knows, we love Jews. Totally. I'm a member of the Israel First Party.
Absolutely. You know, you got to, they are our number one ally.
They're our number one ally. And we must do everything we can to protect Israel and Jews worldwide. That is our primary focus.
In all seriousness, though, guys, don't be hating. Don't be hating drives you to a really negative place. Okay, you become your own worst enemy when you hate things. Don't hate anybody. You got to love people, and sometimes you need to give them tough love.
Yeah. But you can hate the enemies of the Jews. That's okay.
We're talking about juice.
Oh, juice is so good, man. I love
juice. Yeah, I love juice.
I love all kinds of juice.
I love all kinds of Adrian. You're being really fucking funny, Adrian. I love you, sister, man. I fucking do, man. David, take us out, man.
All right, this is
something I'm gonna get you in trouble for.
We acknowledge the absolute truth of beauty and goodness and justice and natural law. If you love those things, we love you too. God bless every one of you. Thank you to Haythrun and John Steele and Tom Bombadil who have joined me. And special thanks to everybody that sent super chats and all of my backers on Patreon. We will be back next week with more. No, wait. No, love speech is when you kick a woman in the face to defend abortion. That's love speech. We will be back with more hate speech in 1 week's time. God bless all of you. Be good to one another. Deus Vult. This is Aurini out.